Be recorded.
I'm going to check that YouTube is working somewhere.
Sometimes YouTube likes to play games. So. How is it set up? Is there a live stream on there?
Where do you see that at?
Like you have to.
Off?
Yeah.
All right. So I just need to, nope, not share that screen. Can we not see those ones? None of the screens. Which one do we push for the screen? Four is the one.
There we go.
If I go
Not so much.
to three.
This conference will now be recorded.
We are ready.
Okay, all good? All right, thank you. Hello, everyone. I would like to call to order the City of Escalon Planning Commission meeting for March 12th, 2024. Please note that Commissioner Dunbar will be attending remotely from 529 Smith Brothers Road in Bodega Bay, California. And the meeting will be conducted in accordance with the teleconference attendance rules set forth in Government Code Section 45953B. Can we start with the Pledge of Allegiance, please? Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have a roll call tonight.
Commission Chair Mark Sarkozy.
Here.
Commission Vice Chair Steve Castellanos.
Here.
Commissioner Barbara Willis.
Here.
Commissioner Mike Dunbar.
Here.
Thank you. We can hear you now, Commissioner Dunbar. Commissioner
Good.
Ronnie Van Dyke.
Here.
Great, thank you. Note all cell phones, pagers, and similar devices need to be set on silent or vibrate mode or turned off unless you are an on-duty emergency responder. First item up tonight is the consent calendar to approve the minutes of last month's meeting of February 13th, 2024. Any comments or corrections?
No, I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes from the February 13th meeting.
I'll second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, motion.
He wasn't here.
Okay, motion passed 4-0-1. Okay, next we'll move on to the first of our projects, the public hearing. Project number 23-786, site and architecture approval at 1230 Brennan Road, Escalon, APN number 225-020-450-000. We start with the staff report.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Jalen French, the Manager of Development and Community Services. As was read, staff will provide the staff report on this item, Project 23-786, now commonly referred to as Weldway Steel. The application before the Planning Commission is for site and architecture approval. Site and architecture found in section 17.54040 of the Escalon Municipal Code includes 23 findings to be made as part of the approval. Planning Commission is the deciding body on site and architect, which means it will not go further. There's no city council approval. So the project being proposed is to develop a 20-acre portion of the subject property, which is 38 acres total, to relocate an existing steel fabrication business. The development would include the construction of a 44,000 square foot fabrication shop, a 14,400 square foot paint building, 2 maintenance buildings of 9,375 square feet and 7,500 square feet, and an 11,000 square foot office building and associated parking and landscaping. This would be the first development within the Liberty Business Park specific plan area, which was approved by the City Council in 2007. The area is located north of 120, just west of Brennan. The zoning on the property actually carries 2 zoning classifications. The bulk of it is light industrial, and there is a portion that is C2 community commercial. The office building and parking are proposed in the commercial portion of the property, with the bulk of the project, the industrial business, located in the M1, the light industrial. The CEQA determination on this, the project proponent's CEQA consultant has prepared a modified, updated initial study and subsequent associated documentation indicating that the proposed project relies on sections 15168 and 15183 of the CEQA guidelines, which substantiates the city's general plan EIR and specific plan EIR fully evaluated all potential environmental concerns associated with the project. There are a couple elements associated with the project that I want to share with the commission that are, I guess one is outside of the site and architecture. In July of 2022, the City Council did approve a deferred utilities agreement. Most projects, as they come into the city, will connect to city water, city sewer, city storm. This project received approval in July 2022 by the City Council to defer that connection to the city system until such time as either, whichever is soonest of the next 3 things that I will say. Number 1, 5 years from installation of private utilities. So a date is set that they put in the private septic system or really go live with the well. 5 years from then, they will need to connect to city services. Or number 2, 180 days after service has been extended to the project area. So if the city notifies them that services are now there, city services are now there, they have 180 days to connect to our system. Or 3, 2 years from the approval of another or subsequent project within the specific plan area. So if another project were to be approved, both projects would have 2 years to connect to the city system. One other thing outside of site and architecture, in a specific plan, in a specific plan, sometimes there is common infrastructure that is beyond the scope or responsibility of one developer within that specific plan. This is about 150 acre specific plan area. The project before you is 20 acres of that, potentially up to 38 acres in subsequent approvals. So there's infrastructure outside of the responsibility of one developer. So the city is establishing, and the specific plan calls for, a plan area fee. And so basically what that does is look at the cost of all of the common infrastructure that would need to be provided, and it would divide it across either by acreage, by square footage, by use, something to make it an equitable share of the, again, common or larger infrastructure. So city staff is developing that plan area fee and hope to have it around the time of building permit, but we'll implement that to ensure that the common infrastructure, the larger infrastructure, is funded by all developments within the specific plan area. So things in regard to the site and architecture, which again is the application before you. The project would require 82 parking spaces. The project proposes 84, so they are in excess of their parking requirement. There are a couple issues regarding wall and fencing. Staff has requested and applicant, I believe, is agreeable to an 8-foot masonry wall adjacent to the existing residential property in that area. Staff has not requested a wall on the western boundary of their property in between the residential at this time, because that is the property, that's the 18 acres north of the 20 acres that's being developed. Staff's thought would be when the 18 acres is being developed, that is when that wall would move forward. Staff has requested that the proposed decorative fencing, which is located on the western boundary of the project, in front of the project along Brennan, is continued on the southern boundary, at least through the parking. The applicant has not agreed to that at this point, citing safety concerns. Which leads us to another issue. The applicant at this point is proposing barbed wire fencing for security purposes along the southern boundary, and I believe the eastern boundary as well. Again, for safety and security concerns. Barbed wire is not allowed in the Escalon Municipal Code, so this will be a matter that the Planning Commission will have to weigh in on. So that is the bulk of the staff report, and we would be happy to answer any questions before we, of course, turn it over to the public for their comments.
Thank you. Any questions from the commissioners on the staff report?
Not at this time.
And on the staff report, no.
Commissioner Dunbar?
Not at this time.
Do you have any questions?
Not at this time.
Okay.
No, not at this time.
Okay. All right, well, at this time, let's see, it's 6:48. We've got a big agenda tonight, and I just want to make sure everybody can get heard. So for this project, could I just see a sign of hands who would be interested in talking on this project? Okay, so with all the people here in the different projects, we will want to keep the comments to 3 minutes each. And they can't be surrendered to another person. So please, think about what you're going to say and use your time wisely. We just want to get everyone a chance to say what their feelings are. So with that, at 6:49, we'll open up the public hearing, and if someone would like to come up.
Hi, my name is Marlene Chaton, and I will be a neighbor directly across Brennan Road. I have a couple of questions and comments. I don't know if Woodway Steel owns or operates their own equipment. We are talking flatbeds, drop decks, double lowboys, and I did not see on the map where they have allowed for parking for their equipment pool. I'm really concerned about that. Brennan Road is very narrow. There is no off-side on the shoulder parking. As an example, they have received deliveries at this location of structural equipment. The truck and the flatbed that were used to deliver these items, because Brennan Road is so narrow, they have a very narrow driveway into their facility. The driver couldn't make it. He ended up coming into our property to line up to go directly down their narrow driveway. So the concern is safety and a lot of, make sure that their driveway is wider. Not all truck drivers have the same expertise. This particular driver could not make it. Concern number 2, Brennan and Highway 120. Very dangerous intersection. And we're talking drop deck trailers, flatbeds, lowboys. They can be up to 53 feet long. And in a residential area, you're going to have passenger cars probably behind them. And we don't want any more accidents. Also, I noticed that in all of this, they have a paint shop. Concern for hazardous material. We are in the county. All of the neighbors have wells. That is our drinking water. We just have a concern that we continue having safe drinking water. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Planning Chair and Commissioners. My name is Nick Obligacion, and I live on Farinelli Parkway in the Ballestera Estates, which is about 1,500 feet south of this project. I've lived in Escalon for 33 years, where my wife and I have raised 2 daughters, and now my daughters are raising their kids here as well. I've worked in the public sector for 29 years. I retired as the police chief for the city of Manteca. During that career, I spent 12 years in the traffic division as a motor officer, and again, I retired as a chief, and I dealt with everything else besides traffic then. I'm not opposed to reasonable growth, but I'm opposed to growth that causes unneeded liability. I have a couple concerns about the Brennan Road project. You've heard some of them already, but first, after reviewing the municipal code regarding zoning, the Liberty Park specific plan, the applicant's application, and looked at the applicant's website, I'm not 100% convinced this actually meets the zoning matrix as it's listed in the zoning guide in the municipal code, that it's permitted use for M1. It more fits in the M2 category. If you look at M1, it states equipment repair, limited manufacturing, machinery repair, paint supply, janitorial, where M2 zoning in the matrix states industrial general, such as major manufacturing and major assembly. If you look at Weldway's actual website, some of their on-site capabilities, I'm not going to read all of them because I only have 3 minutes, but they have a Camco beam cambering press, which is 840 tons. That doesn't sound like it's light manufacturing. A 300-ton press brake, TIG welding, sub-arc welding, 4 5-ton overhead bridge cranes. A lot of this they're just going to relocate. So they're bringing that to that project. And again, I'm not doubting the Planning Commission, but my concerns are, is that actually an M1 or M2 zoning project? Again, just based on the current list of the capabilities, I think it more fits in the M2 category than the M1, which that's actually zoned for. Second issue is traffic. Again, worked 12 years in traffic. I've been there, done that. This project's located about 200 to 300 feet north of Brennan, at the Brennan and Highway 120 intersection. While this is the first phase of the development of the Liberty Park project, it's going to compound the traffic issue that currently exists at Brennan and Highway 120. I've traveled that intersection for over 33 years. I've witnessed numerous collisions, many near misses. I personally responded from my house to that particular intersection because I could hear the crash. I helped Escalon PD, CHP with traffic control. My belief isn't that the actual employees are going to cause the issue, but like the gal that just came up, the trucks are going to be a significant issue. She wasn't sure what they look like, but if I could share it with you, I don't know if I'm allowed to share a picture with you. Sure. But I'll show you a picture. I was there this morning. I went out for another reason out to that location. And
Yeah.
That's the timer, sorry.
oh, I'm already out of time.
Thank you.
That's right.
I get a couple more minutes. I promise to be iffy.
I really need to be tight.
Again, so my concerns is traffic. I mean, you've had collisions there. You've had fatals of that collision, again, between the traffic and the actual location. And I did have one other complaint, was the noise. I think I talked to you about it. I actually went out and sat at their location, and the noise was not an issue. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Can I ask you a question of the gentleman? Is this photo of the existing operation?
That was taken this morning in front of their business, correct?
Okay.
Okay.
I was gonna say there's stoplights and.
Yeah, I was like, that's not here. I don't know where that is.
Hey, hi.
Hi, I'm Mary Pinero. I live across the street on Brennan Road, and I live on the east side, the west side of Brennan. And he mentioned that the property was on the west side, but I think he really meant the east side of Brennan. I am also concerned with traffic. Brennan is narrow. We have 25-foot trailers coming in and out of our project, and out of our house, our acre, sort of, almost an acre. When I approached the one of the planning commission people in your old offices, which was a long time ago, they assured me that none of the property taken would come from the county side of the road, which is the side I'm on. And I don't quite see how they're going to get it all from the city side. My concern is that when this project was talked about, they talked about putting a barrier down Brennan Road, making it the 2 lanes. I don't even think they were talking about 3 lanes. But I'm concerned about the barrier because I couldn't get a 25-foot trailer into my property if there's a barrier there. That would make the curve way too steep. So my concern is pretty much traffic. As far as noise, when I was young, we lived across from what was then Blowpipe, was now HMI. We learned to live with the noise, so I don't think the noise will be an issue for us. But I did want you to reconsider what you will do with Brennan Road and how it would affect those of us on the county side. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. 3 minutes isn't enough. This is a really big project for the city, and I think you need to give it a little bit more effort than that. With that, I'll go as quickly as I can. The deferred utility agreement as an extension of the infrastructure is a costly venture. Development or a portion of the specific plan area, the city is establishing a plan area fee. What is that? Which collects money from all developments, and there could be only one possibility here for 5 years. If you don't have another one, it's going to be.
Who's speaking?
We just need
There's no requirement to give your name,
okay.
but I will tell you my name is Kurt Danziger, and I am an Escalon resident. You should have that in your instructions. All right, please don't cut me off at the time. Which collects money for the development for the necessary common infrastructure. So this plan, the plan area fee, if this were the only project in this Liberty Park specific plan for 5 years, would have to cover the installation of infrastructure across 120 and tie into this business. Is that correct? So the fee before you vote on this tonight, and you may want to table it, you need to establish what that fee is. That may be cost prohibitive to the applicant, and they need to know that. Excuse me. So we need to know, is this a monthly fee? Is it a yearly fee? Where's it going? Is it into a city separate account? Is it general fund? What are we doing? Okay, so it would be part of the approval process. The actual agreement here is so loosely done that it just begs for litigation. And we've had other examples in town with the Lear project, Lyondakis, where there has been specific things that these applicants were responsible for and timelines. They never met them. They're not going to meet it here either. So the city's going to incur legal fees there. I think there needs to be stronger language that if we have to implement court proceedings against whoever's out there to collect the money to tie into that infrastructure, that should be paid for completely by the people that are out there at Liberty Park, and not even subject to the prevailing party. They should cover the city's fees. We need to protect the city. This is a good way to protect it. Lastly, and I'll tie this thing up, there are several issues here that you haven't addressed yet that they don't want to do. Number one, they don't want to put in these site-specific plans, infrastructure as it was drawn out. They don't want to position the property for roads, future roads and what have you. That is not conducive to other businesses wanting to come in. So that argument's going to fail. There's other things they don't want to do. They don't want to comply with barbed wire. They don't want to have, certain fencing. These are indicators that the company is going to be, contagious. All right, so it wouldn't bother me at all if you get these answers tonight, and if they're not answered, to your satisfaction, and we don't get this fee in here, I don't have a problem tabling this until you get all that information come back to you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, I'll be next. Charles Levitt. I live on Brennan Road. Actually, I have two properties. One that I'm co-owners with my brother and sister, which our father bought in I believe it was 49, which is directly across from this property. And I've watched throughout this several months of everything that's been going on, and neighbors and other people ask what's going on. I don't know. I can tell you it's what I see. And then come in January, the city finally put up a sign that says planning application notice. And yet all this work has been done. There's been dirt moved, packed, surveyors has been there, dirt's moved again, repacked. It's like obviously they're making foundations ready for they can start pouring concrete. But then there's the roads. It's got rock down one side, in which it's already been mentioned the trucks coming and going out of there, which I have come home and the road has been blocked by these trucks coming out and can't make the turn. On the corner of their property in Brennan, there's a power pole there. That is a major problem. So sooner or later, somebody's gonna probably take that out, and now we've lost power down the whole road, which seems like Brennan loses a lot of power, it seemed like, over the years. So, and then there's the divider that was mentioned. We've got an almond orchard right now. We just pulled out the trees, but we've got doubles that come in to haul out the nuts. Besides how many trucks they're going to have coming from Stockton, and how many trucks are going to leave and turn and go the other way and get on 120 to go to the Bay Area where they deliver all their products. So, traffic will be an issue. Trucks. We have milk trucks, we have hay trucks, we have all kinds of trucks going down Brennan. Now we're gonna probably double that amount. So the road just got fixed, year and 2 years ago? So it's gonna go to pot quicker with all these extra heavy trucks coming out of Stockton with all materials. Another concern I have is they left irrigation box close to the road, which is where the well is for originally the walnuts. And they've got their pond that's real close. So why did they leave the box? Or is that convenient so they could empty the pond into the box that goes into the irrigation, which is the pipeline that goes down our property? So we want to be good neighbors, but yet it's got to be a two-way street. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Natalie Gallegos, and I live on California Street here in Escalon on the west side. My property is actually, my backyard actually faces 120. My concern is the noise. I haven't done my homework as Mr. Danziger has done, but I think his issues with the sewer hookups are valid, very valid, as well as the traffic that the other people have brought up. I too hear the accidents constantly, and it's my understanding that there's a prospective housing development going in on the corner of 120 and Brennan. So you're going to have potentially 85 more homes in that postage stamp of an area using that same intersection that these big rigs are going to be coming in and out of on top of the highway traffic already passing through town. I think a lot more planning and organization needs to be done before this project gets approved. I understand we need revenue here in Escalon. I completely am on board with growth, but I think a little more thought process needs to go in before we approve something like that. Thank you.
Danny Fox, I wasn't going to come to speak. I just want to come and listen. But the revenue for the city is going to amount to about $13,000 a year, this project. Because I think if you go back and look at the city council meeting, I think they're saying that their gross income was 25 to 28 million. The city finance director back in 2022 indicated that this county regulates that money, and that 0.6% of that 25 or 28 million will come back to the city, which would equate to $13,000. So that's $13,000 worth of income. But I think some of the people that spoke today, if you take a look at the history at some of these deals that the city's made in the past, it's hard to keep some of them their feet to the fire for them to comply with the deals that they put through. And I guess my question is, if I had a lot in the city of Escalon, could I not put in a well and a septic tank? Or would I have to hook up to city services? I would have to hook up to city services, correct? Unless I came to the council and I got a utilities agreement, such as the project out on Brennan 120. Thank you.
Anybody else on that? And then we'll call up the applicant. No.
Hey, good evening, Peter Krummick. I just want to rise in support. There's a lot of opposition towards this business going in. And I think from my experience, whenever you have a business going in or some new development, you're going to get opposition from the neighbors. Nobody wants anybody to move in next to them. It's just the way it always is. But I believe that your job as the Planning Commission is to evaluate whether or not the project meets the criteria, it meets the zoning, it meets the code. I know that this has been going on for years, and I think that it's not really, an issue of if people are offended that this is going in or this or that. Yeah, noise is going to happen, traffic's going to happen. These are things that are a direct result of development. And so I think people need to recognize that and understand that. And I think your job is not to respond and make decisions based on, personal feelings, but based upon what is appropriate for the city based upon the laws and the things we have on the books. And so I've heard a lot of opposition tonight. I didn't want to rise. I'm here for another topic, but I have to speak in defense of my fellow businessmen. And I think that you guys, I think it's a good project, and I think it starts the Liberty Business Park. It's going to be the catalyst. It's going to start things. And it could lead to traffic improvement. I mean, if that goes in, then maybe Caltrans comes in, and then we expand that, and we put a light in. There's all these other things that could go into play. But I think you guys need to, keep a level head and not just go on, public opinion. All right, thanks.
Thank you. Okay, so with that, at 7:10, we'll close the public hearing and call up the applicant.
Okay.
Keep it open for the applicant and then close it. But you can clarify the public comment portion is closed.
Okay. Okay, so the public comment portion is closed, but the public hearing is still open, and we have the applicant here.
Yep, Greg Yates.
Can you, any questions for the applicant from the commission?
I'd like to hear his presentation.
I didn't really come prepared for a presentation, but I'd like to address some of the comments. And as far as traffic control, so we will notify the vendors of all the truck traffic to come in from the north, so we're not going to be hitting the 120. There will be some sub-haulers that it's really hard to control, but 90% of our trucking will come in from the north side without crossing 120. Can't remember a couple of the other comments. If you guys remember one, I would address them. As far as the fencing too, the decorative fencing, Jalen wanted, I don't know if you pulled up a map, but we're right next to that Caltrans basin right there. So if we did put the decorative fencing, it wouldn't be seen by anybody because of the chain link fence there.
And I have kind of a picture of the Caltrans basin if it helps. Fingers are stuck together here.
You can share. You can share with that.
It's the Caltrans basin that is just a little bit further back from Brennan. So decorative fencing behind it is kind of not real helpful.
So this fencing in relationship to Brennan and 120, where would that be?
That fence there is on the southern west portion of our property.
This is Brennan, and this is where the basin is, so you can pass that around with it if you like. This is
looking in. Okay. And as far as the block wall, Jalen, that's acceptable to us if we ever develop that 18/8.
This one?
The barbed wire is not it's not a sticking point. We prefer that, but if it's not allowed, then we can deal with that.
Basin right here.
What, traffic-wise, you said most of it will be coming in from the north?
North. We get, on an average day, 5-6 trucks a day of material coming in and maybe one leaving a day. So they would all come in from the north and exit to the north. So we do this on job sites where we have to direct traffic and truck control, through residential areas. We're experienced with it on the job site, and we just direct the vendors on which way the trucks have to go. So, and I know the neighbors had some comments about the trucks sitting there early, and we will address that concern as well too.
How would you propose to do that?
Well, we haven't fully developed the site nor the width of the driveway yet, so there will be room with the wider driveway for them to pull off the road Because some of the vendors have a sub-hauler, they might be coming out of LA and get there at 2 in the morning, but there will be sufficient room between the road and the gate for 2 to 3 trucks on each side to pull in off the road and park.
So you mentioned coming from LA, that makes me think they would come right down the 120.
They can come down 120, go down Belota to Lone Tree and back down to Brennan.
Good.
Well, they're gonna be directed to do that.
Okay.
It's not up to them with this, we direct the vendors on which way the trucking, the routing is.
Maybe this is more for staff. Could you explain what Caltrans' role is, any, on this, on what that would mean to 120 or Brennan?
Absolutely. So staff will go through and address some of the concerns or questions raised by the public. This cues up one of those. Over the years, staff has been in communication with Caltrans on 120 and Brennan. Brennan is part city facility and part county facility. 120 is Caltrans facility. It's their roadway. Several years ago, Caltrans has indicated that the project does not meet warrants, meaning it doesn't have enough traffic on it to warrant any future improvement or any immediate improvement. That was the line several years ago, kind of end conversation, it doesn't meet it. We have more recently had conversations with Caltrans where they've relooked at the traffic on both Brennan and 120. They still feel it does not meet warrants for their proactive pot of money. They have basically 2 pots of money. It is not a congested or unsafe roadway enough, and I know people will object to that, right? Anytime you have an accident, especially, fatalities, that doesn't sit well with residents. I fully understand that. Caltrans is a statewide department that looks at hundreds of thousands of miles, hundreds of thousands of intersections. This is their criteria that they have used. But through further conversations, they acknowledge that there is a need eventually for some improvement, right? And they have this reactive pot of money that we are in line for now. It's undetermined when we could be eligible for that money. 2 years, 5 years, 6 years, we don't know. We are further looking into using some of the transportation dollars that we receive to do initial parts of the construction, preliminary design, preliminary environmental, to move the ball further along on this intersection. The council has not made that determination yet. Staff will bring them an item soon, but we are exploring those matters. So this is Caltrans' facility at this point. Ultimately, with the build out of the residential property that was mentioned, as well as the build out, close to build out of the industrial park, there will be enough momentum, there will be enough funds collected in this plan area fee that we talked about to utilize some Caltrans money and utilize some city money to improve the intersection. That is the thought. That is generally how development works. Again, it can't be, per state law, the responsibility of one developer generally. So we are working with Caltrans. We fully expect, within a reasonable time frame, right, several years, to have some traffic control at the Brennan 120 intersection. So I'll pause there. Did that answer?
Yeah, thank you.
I have a question for staff. We are looking at site and architect, correct? based on the site, is the city going to be taking some frontage roads for improvement on this site? Or is it gonna, Brennan's gonna pretty much stay the same width? Or is the right-of-way already been established, it's just, you know, that's been improved, so you don't know where that line is?
Brennan in the specific plan ultimately is called to be widened to 5 lanes. So part of the plan area fee that we collect will be to widen that along the stretch of Brennan. So 2 lanes in each direction with a turn lane. The applicant will not install those improvements now, will pay the plan area fee, but will dedicate the right-of-way for the ultimate widening of the roadway.
And then the other thing is, on the little site plan, I can't read the width, because it looks like there's a circular loop with direction going in both lanes, both ways.
25
How
feet.
wide is the driveways or the approaches?
What page are you looking at?
Excuse me?
What page are you looking at?
This would be, I'm looking at SP number 5.
You need SP3, it's 25.
Page 41.
SP3, 25.
It's 25 feet, top and bottom.
25 feet.
And then it's a 12-foot setback for landscaping.
Okay. You get, I was looking at the mini plans. Okay. So right now, how wide is the approach onto the property? Something smaller than 25 feet?
Yes, yes. But we've dedicated, like Jalen said, Mr. Franks, we've dedicated that setback on the road. And to address the concern that one of the residents had about the irrigation box, it is where it is, it's where it's been, and we're still irrigating, you know, a portion of the property through that box. And the runoff water is self-contained in the retention basins. It's not going to go back into South San Joaquin's pipelines. We've already been in discussions with South San Joaquin.
So Commissioner, was your question regarding the width of the driveways?
Yeah, well, I can see it on the larger map as 25 feet. So I'm assuming that's going to be adequate.
So this is a planning level. If approved by the commission at whatever time, right, will we get into building level? And if we feel at that point that there is, which should be addressed now, I would agree. If we feel there's concerns there, we can address at the building level as well.
And the other question I have for the applicant, I saw a large plan that showed that there was redwood trees planted along
It'd be the south.
southern border and the eastern border.
Yes, sir.
What size containers are those trees going to be in? How big are those trees?
Well,
initially, and I know they grow fast initially.
Initially, we're thinking around the 15 foot, 10 to 15 feet range.
Okay.
So we want to start them to where we can at least block some of the view of the building while they're growing.
So that site plan I saw, the chain link fence with the barbed wire and then behind it, the trees.
That's the way that was drawn, yes.
I have questions. And for staff at first, I noticed that there's call-outs for 2 different rows. And I don't know who can clarify this for me, but is that for the anticipated additional traffic lanes on the drawing? Because I'm just concerned about the setbacks from the road on SP3. There's a 50-foot existing road and then a 45 dedication.
So I believe that is, so that is showing the pavement that is on the ground now, the existing right-of-way, and the additional right-of-way that is being required into the applicant's property. So an additional, looks like additional 45 feet.
Is that where the roadway would expand?
Yes.
So
Yes.
through their, what it looks like to me if I'm following the plan, through their fencing that they would have in place and up into the catch basin?
So there'll be, is that X? Is that a fence? But yes, there may be initial, right? So if the road isn't widened initially, which it won't be, there may be initial improvements. And then as the road is widened down the road, at some point, they've dedicated that property to the city. That is where the widening will be. And any improvement they have in that will need to be moved back at that time.
Okay.
It's like, a house that doesn't have sidewalk and they have grass in that area. When you install the sidewalk, whatever landscaping they have would be pushed back to allow for the sidewalk.
Okay. I just want to make sure that if and when that does happen, if there's projects were to go, that there is enough room to pull off the road with trucks. And then also beyond that is if there is trucks that come in the evening time or overnight or sleeping in, that they don't run their vehicle while they're parked for sleeping, which sometimes happens on trucks that go overnight, because that would be of concern for a noise, at least getting them in far enough in the property to kind of diminish that for the neighbors, as well as being able to safely pull off. Based on the dimension for that roadway that we were talking about, the 25 feet, that's making the driveways on both sides 25 foot wide with the expansive turn-in. Is there a possibility for a pull-off area in the front for those trucks? Should they need to reorient themselves to make it in, obviously, without that way that they don't have to risk going into adjacent properties?
There is on the southern driveway, they can pull into the driveway, and I can't see the dimension there, between the road and the gate. I believe we have close to 100 feet, right? So 2 trucks can pull in there off the road with the cabs towards the gate.
It's 100 feet. I'm sorry, I'm
Would you like me to show you?
I'm just trying to see where it would tell me if it's 100 feet. I don't see it on the plan. I'm looking at SB3.
The gate is here,
Mm-hmm.
and we have roughly 100 feet.
Yeah, my concern, you'll have to be able to move that back, should they?
Well, it's back, that's at the road widening, not where it's at.
Okay, perfect, thank you. The other questions that I had, and that was the fencing and just following the design requirements that the packet that I got. What's the max height of the storage behind the fencing? Will it remain below the fence line, or could it?
It could pop up once in a while. We try to keep it below 8 feet.
8 feet? Okay.
Starts to become a safety concern if we get too much higher than that.
Mm-hmm. And then on the fencing, though I know Caltrans put in a very minimalistic fence around their catch basin, for this project and for the requirements that are put in this packet, it's asking for ornamental, like metal fencing or block. and then some iteration of landscape and something that looks nice.
We did incorporate that on the west end of the,
Yeah, the front of the property, as far as what it looks like on the elevations and the architectural layout, it's very nice. It's just this project, though, we don't know who's coming in next. And the portion of the project that's in that, what is the zone difference? I'm sorry, for the commercial area that's going to be next to, like the one that runs along 120, the red area on this reference map. It's not light industrial, it's the other one. It's commercial, right?
Yeah.
So, are there more elevated requirements for commercial or more minimal requirements for this use type on the zoning?
Yeah, are you talking about in terms of architecture or?
Yes.
Okay. So generally, yes, commercial has a higher standard of architectural requirements than industrial does. Both are spelled out in the specific plan, which more closely governs the development in this area.
Okay.
From staff's perspective and spelled out in the staff report, the office building, which is located primarily in the commercial zone, is very aesthetically pleasing and meets the requirements of the specific plan. The industrial areas, we have stated in the staff report that some of the architectural elements of the industrial buildings maybe fall just short of what the specific plan calls for. Now, the applicant has responded to that in terms of upgrading colors a little bit, some differentiation of color, and then primarily screening the project with landscaping. But to your first question, so if we go back to the office building, the office building in the commercial section, I think is aesthetically pleasing and would meet the requirements anywhere in the city.
Okay, I would agree with that. I just wanted to better understand the other buildings as they relate to this, because it does put kind of heavy design criteria for even those buildings to kind of mimic something of what they've got going on here with some kind of differentiation or, I mean, it speaks to it. It has examples of metal buildings on here. I'm not opposed to metal buildings by any means, but I think that the undesirable design elements. Sorry, I'm following my notes. This is a lot of package to get through. It says large blank unarticulated wall surfaces. We're not worried about the wall blocks. Chain link fence. It's just trying to make sure that what we're going to see from the 120 line is going to be, or meets these conditions. I'm not trying to expand on anything by any means. And then the roof heights are 57 feet at their peak, so the fencing can only do so much. So the trees, that was one question. I don't know how tall they're capable of getting. Do they cover this? Or is there a way that we can request that at least the top portion of the buildings be something that people want to or don't mind looking at for what I assume to be a long time? And then I did drive by the property. I was attempting to reach out to the neighbor that's just right next to them, where that block wall was being asked for, because I don't know if they would want to go from looking at a pasture or green, to a block wall just stuck in the middle of nowhere. But I wasn't able to make contact with them. Were you guys able to contact?
We've talked to them quite a bit while we've been out there. I didn't specifically ask them about the wall, but I know they would prefer to see, we planted wheat there now and it'll be alfalfa and the summer, but they prefer that as of right now.
Yeah, okay.
But if it expands, then we have no problem putting the wall in.
Okay. Yeah, like I said, I think my greatest concern with dealing with the traffic and all of that is, and if our building plan review goes through traffic and puts that all together and makes sure that they have the right offsets and it's safe. I just don't know. I've only been on here for a year and this is like number 2 of this expansive of a project, so I don't know what my pluses and minuses are, so I'm just going to ask questions. I think that's all I have.
Not any questions.
Commissioner Dunbar?
Yes, I have a couple. I'm assuming you can still hear me.
Yep. Yes.
Good. First, I have a question for staff. When do we anticipate having this fee ready, so we'll know exactly how much it's going to be charged, both for the purposes of the applicant and also for the purposes of the city, the deferred utility agreement fee structure?
We hope to have the fee adopted around the same time as a building permit is pulled for this project. We may just be behind it, but the hope is to have it around the time of a building permit is pulled. The intent of the fee, the exercise that we're going through, the effort that we're going through is called a nexus study. And what the nexus study will do is create a proportional share of each development's responsibility of the total infrastructure that is required. So I'm not suggesting that the dollar amount is unimportant now, but the point of a nexus study is to ensure that the total infrastructure costs associated with a specific plan area is spread equally across the development area in the specific plan. So everything that is included, their portion of the intersection of Brennan 120, the widening at Brennan, the storm drain basin that ultimately could go in, the city well, the entry monumentation for the project site, all of that will be cost estimated and then spread equally across the projects within the development area.
Okay. I'm also aware this is the very first project for Liberty Business Park, and obviously we hope that going forward more will come. So, like it or not, this seems to set a standard. So I'm wondering, is it wise to relax our minimum standards to suit an applicant when this will be the first and presumably the showcase development within this park? I don't know if that's a question for staff or if the applicant wants to address that as well. But I am concerned about barbed wire. There are any number of fencing options, all of them involving metal, and this company is a metal fabrication company. So that's why I'm just a little concerned about the fence, but also the buildings.
I'll start. Again, the application in front of the commission is for site and architecture. We have identified in the staff report, so there's two things that sort of govern the site and architecture here. The Escalon Municipal Code and the findings are in the staff report, as well as the design guidelines within the specific plan. And I would say the design guidelines in the specific plan are just even a little more enhanced. Staff has worked with the project applicant, in particular around the architecture of the industrial buildings. And as is the applicant's right, they want to have their project before the appointed body of the Planning Commission to weigh in. But your deliberations here are regarding the site and architecture of the proposed project as you have in front of you in the staff report.
In regards to the fence, we suggested, a black nylon coated chain link, but a black nylon coated one. We asked if we could put barbed wire on there to keep, people from coming over the fence, but it's not it's not a requirement. It was a question.
Yeah, I understand that barbed wire seems to be security, but I was looking, for instance, at the MID project on McHenry, closer to Modesto, and they have a fence that appears to be built with security in mind, and it has those curved spikes, which would appear to do the same job that barbed wire would do, perhaps even better. So that's why I'm asking about that.
And I would be open for discussion. So, the submittal was our first choice.
Okay, and I was also wondering, and this is a little bit perhaps off topic, but or at least maybe perhaps premature, but what do you intend to store any other types of vehicles or things on this property once you get it up and running? I Google Earthed, I looked on Google at your site in Oakdale, and for instance, I saw an RV sitting there. Is this something that's work related, or do you store other types of vehicles on the location?
We do not have an RV stored on our property. We do not. We have several trucks, 1 ton, 26,000 GVWs, tractors, trailers. We have about 20 trailers. We have 3 semi trucks, maybe 20 forklifts. We have some larger equipment, but we have no RVs.
Okay. Well, maybe on the day that Google Earth took the picture, it was there or something similar. Thank you.
I would not let an RV on the property.
Okay. Well, that answers that. All right. Thank you. That's the last of my questions.
Anything else for the applicant? Hearing no, we'll close the public hearing. Thank you. And we'll bring it back to commission for any discussion.
And just to remind the commission, I think it's important to remind in situations like this, the submittal before you, the approval before you is limited to building architecture and siting design of the project. And to see based upon the renderings and the setbacks and the design of the site and the elevations, the architecture, if those meet this commission's satisfaction or not. That's the limited, the general plan, the specific plan, the policy goals of the city have already been set. And so this is a project approval within the building architecture and site design. I just want to make that clear.
When you say site, you mean the location or just?
So with the siding layout, so the drive aisle, hey, it should be 10 feet over this way, or we should increase the setback here, the way the project is sited on the actual property. For example, there were concerns about access from 120. are there things you could do inside the property that could address some of those concerns to make sure it's compatible with the surrounding environment? But still, your purview is within the actual site itself.
Well, what if another site might be more readily appropriate to this?
Yeah, when I say siding, I'm talking about the inside the initial footprint.
Like this will.
I have a question for our attorney. On page 14 of the staff report, under recommendations, C, it looks like there's 3 items that we're really considering here. Is the one is the decorative fencing, the other one is the west and the south walls of the building, and then also the barbed wire fence.
Yeah, so those are 3 particular features regarding architecture and site design that staff wanted to highlight for this commission to weigh in on.
Okay.
That's not an exhaustive list, though, correct, Jalen?
I didn't see, I mean, normally we see a list of, conditions, and I didn't see, unless I missed something.
On page 2 of the staff report, there are 23 listed findings.
Yeah, those are just highlighting some.
Typically, the conditions of approval are located at the end of the staff report. This is the first time they've gotten their own exhibit.
Okay.
So they are Exhibit L.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so findings and so 2 different things. Findings for site and architecture, which is what I thought we were talking about. And then, yes, there are project conditions, which, as Diana just mentioned, are attached as an exhibit to the staff report.
And the applicant's okay with all those conditions?
I believe that to be the case.
Okay. So in this package, where is L?
Do you have a page number?
262?
151.
151. Thank you. Okay. Item McFarland.
I'm sorry, you said all these conditions in Exhibit L, the applicant has already agreed to. Is that correct? Other comments or a motion? Could you go back to the other page? Yeah, thank you.
Frank?
Yes.
Okay, so even though that plan area fee is somewhat nebulous, it's not really a known thing right now, how much is gonna go into it, who's gonna pay into it, we're not here tonight to make our decision based on that.
Yeah, the fees, the general plan, the land use designation, the specific plan, all of those been set separately by essentially the city previously. The purpose of site and architectural approval is to regulate the height, width, shape, proportion, siding, exterior construction design of buildings to ensure they are architecturally compatible with their surroundings, and to avoid the construction of single-purpose or single-proprietor trademark buildings, i.e., think about the old Taco Bell buildings that you all know what an old Taco Bell building looks like. They all look the same. That's the purpose of this. So the purview is not to look at this holistically. There have been several policy decisions that have preceded this one, and you're dealing with a more narrow perspective of the purposes I just articulated.
Okay, just because I like hearing you say that.
Yeah.
Even though it says it has to be compatible with the general plan,
Correct. You always have to have general plan compatibility.
okay, and it
Yes.
says the city has an adequate water supply and provides adequate water service to its customers. Increased demand associated with the build-out of the city's general plan would be satisfied with the use of groundwater, as well as the SSGID surface water acquired through the city's participation in the South San Joaquin Irrigation District and South County. So even if I have an issue with that, that's not part of site and architecture.
Correct. What I would say is this: you have a potential issue with the environmental, right? And one of the findings you're making tonight is to approve the environmental, but you don't have an issue with the site and architectural. Okay, but you'd have to make findings that the infill exemption doesn't apply for A, B, or C reason.
The what exemption?
The infill is it the infill? Sorry. Oh, sorry. I'm getting my projects. The environmental here is basically a modified IS to say that it's consistent with the program EIR. So there's EIR environmental impact report done at a programmatic level, and essentially this is tearing off of that. So the point is there was an environmental assessment analysis done, and that's part of the package you're approving tonight. And that's why if you look at page 14, under recommendations, 3B is adopt the environmental. This is a good project for all of us to learn together on how these things.
So if we don't agree with B, we don't agree with it.
You have to approve, there has to be an environmental approval done for the project to be approved, correct?
I look at this picture, the Techway or whatever the place is out in Oakdale, and I think of the wide open area, I think of the multiple lanes on the road, I think of the ideal setting for this type of operation. I think of Hogan on McHenry, I think of multiple lanes in the road, I think of no neighbors that are being disturbed by that plant. And then I see this thing on Bremen, and we've got neighbors, and we've got narrow roads, and we've got things that might not be dealt with in a very quickly, as far as the road widening and the access. It's concerning to me. Barbed wire, is that like you have a chain link and then you have those metal pieces and the barbed wire runs between those metal pieces?
Yes, that was the proposal. I think you heard the applicant indicate that is not something they need to move forward with. And I'll just touch on the specific plan, just for background information. In 2007, and started well before that, in the preparation period, the city council adopted a specific plan called the Liberty Park Business Plan to eventually see industrial type developments out in this area. That's not to indicate that this should be approved or not approved, but the intent of the specific plan was to see this level of development in the northern portion of the specific plan area, with a line of commercial development along the 120 frontage. That was the stated intent of the specific plan.
What about concertina wire? Isn't that used in some locations here in town? Is that against the code too?
What type of wire?
The concertina, the curly
razor wire?
You just say that we're not going to pursue the barbed wire concertina wire.
back to that other page. Do you have anything else, Barb?
Even though it was selected to be a location for businesses, there could be something that would be a better fit.
I have a question for staff. Just to get this fence thing out of the way, do we have to specify approved fencing if this were to go forward? Do we have to pick something?
It would be ideal should the planning commission pick something if they're replacing a proposal. Technically, you could defer to city staff through, building permit review and then construction inspection to pick an appropriate, based on some parameters. But it would be preferred to pick it at this day. And so I'll just, with that, really the planning commission has three options here: to approve outright, as stated, to approve with modifications or additional conditions, or to deny. And so along your line of questioning, you could modify a condition, you could modify an element of the proposal, and that would be an approval with conditions.
Okay. Is there any way to pull up what our general requirements are for fencing in the city versus the specific plan?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that'll just take us
a second.
30 seconds or so.
Yeah.
That's how quick.
I thought I had it too, but I don't.
It's right there.
No, I have this one. I want to know what the city standard is versus this, so, because we have to specify something if we were to add a condition, or if it were to go to approval, we would need.
Yeah, I agree.
Something.
I think that was less than 30 seconds.
We could submit some different alternatives.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to bring this up, and I don't know if this is okay, but I just wanted to bring this up so that we could kind of hone in on a spot if they were that material or something similar, because I don't think you can show us that coded.
So Diana has pulled up the Escalon Municipal Code section that refers to fences, hedges, and walls. The first 10 or so sections are really about where fences are required. And then you see section K highlighted here that speaks to materials and what is and is not allowed in terms of materials, if that was your specific question.
This was updated by the Planning Commission back in 2020.
Yeah, I mean, the applicant said he would propose some options. In our conditions, we could condition what we want.
Yeah, but what do we want?
Yeah, what's out there.
I think it is important for everyone involved, right? Now, kind of been through this. If there is a discomfort level, I think it's okay to call back up the applicant and ask or propose a certain fence type if that's a hang up by the planning commission.
Could you come back up and maybe explain what your other options for the fencing?
There's the wrought iron type of fence that I think Mr. Dunbar brought up, but there's multiple versions of that, right? So we'd like to pick one out and then submit maybe a couple different samples. We designed the fence at the front of the property on the west side to be appealing, and we could, find the best cost effective appealing fence that the city would like. So we could submit 2 or 3 different versions and go from there, but it would be the wrought iron variety.
We could condition it based on a material of wrought iron and for the staff to approve one of those submittals.
I just didn't want to be stuck saying it would be the curved pickets, but it'll be something similar.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I just wanted to get to something on that.
Okay with that.
You're talking about one,
Oh, where am I?
Fencing.
C1?
No, C3.
Well, he already, yeah. Well, there's just a no for 3.
Oh. That would be C1. And I'm thinking of, if it's not allowed in our code, barbed wire.
Yeah, he said no.
My thoughts are, put this, the city went to a lot of planning over the years to put this business park together, and we have a business that is ready to come in and be the first one. There's a cost to that, and the city has made provision so that's not a extraordinary burden on the first one to come in. If the I'm wondering what else could go there. If there's some opposition to this type of business, what else? Someone else comes down the road, is it going to be even more industrial? And now we've got 2 projects that we're questioning. So that's my thinking with that. So with that, I'll make a motion to make the findings as required per section 17.54.040 for site and architecture, and adopt the modified initial study finding the project is consistent with the program EIR, section 15168, and consistent with the city general plan, section 15183, and direct staff to file a notice of exemption with San Joaquin County Recorder's Office. Let's see, and for item C1, I would say that the decorative fencing should continue along the southern border of the property line until the second eastern parking lot begins. Item 2, I'm okay. I don't think they need to be enhanced anymore. And item 3, not to allow barbed wire.
Need
The wrought iron.
Yeah, you
But to do the wrought iron instead and submit that to staff for staff's approval.
Sorry, and to do the wrought iron instead, and to submit various options to staff for their approval.
Can I sit, or do you still need me up here?
Oh, sit.
Yeah, go ahead, sorry.
Actually, we should close the public hearing. Or you already did?
Yeah.
Okay.
Do we have a first? Do we have a
Yes,
second?
we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Aye.
Opposed.
Do it
Just to
again?
be clear, can
It was
we,
4-1. It was 4-1.
Motion passes 4-1. Thank you.
Hour and a half.
I get 2-minute recess.
8 o'clock.
I
Hour and a
get
half.
2-minute recess.
It'll be 9:30.
People will get out.
11 o'clock will be out.
We get 2-minute recess.
What's that?
Yeah.
Is it so now?
just pause, just
Okay.
for clearing of the room.
Are these waters for us? Are these waters for us?
I don't know, I guess that's yours. I brought
You
mine.
got them.
I'm not special like everybody else.
Okay, so next on our agenda is project number 23-789, a plan development and site and architecture for 1495 Countrywood Lane, APN number 227-320-320-000. We have a staff report for this one?
Okay. Thank you again, Chair. The application before the Planning Commission is for site and architecture, like we did last time, as well as a plan development. A plan development is essentially a rezone. And so for site and architecture, the Planning Commission will be the determining body. And for the plan development, the rezone, the Planning Commission will be the recommending body onto the City Council. The project description, as was read, is to rezone property from C2, community commercial, to plan development for the proposed construction of an 18-unit senior living community. The site is south of Countrywood, east of McHenry, behind the newly constructed McDonald's location. As was stated, the zoning of the property is C2, community commercial, and the project is proposing a PD zoning. This would be the third, if approved, this would be the third plan development in the city. And that is consistent with Escalon Municipal Code, Section 17.24. The CEQA determination on the project as prepared by the project proponent's CEQA consultant is that the project is categorically exempt per section 15332 infill development. So on the site and architecture component, staff does find, and the pictures are available in the staff report, staff does find that the proposed architecture, with modifications we've made throughout the application process, are in conformance with the code section 17.54040, which details and outlines the site and architecture. So staff does feel that the proposed project before you today is consistent with the site and architecture requirements. So now on the planned development piece, the way the code is structured in Escalon, multifamily dwellings are permitted in the C2 zone with a preliminary development plan. And the way the code is structured further, the preliminary development plan is synonymous with a planned development. And again, those are outlined in the Escalon Municipal Code. So a piece to share here outside of site and architecture, the City Council did approve a fee deferral and reduction agreement associated with this project. The applicant requested a reduction to some fees. After discussion, it was decided that they would move forward, and the council approved a 50% reduction in the park impact fee for each unit. So instead of about a $12,000 park development impact fee, a $6,000 park impact fee is being paid for each unit. And that those fees, generally paid at building permit, will be paid at occupancy of unit, and then spread across a multiple year period. Now, in the agreement, it states that the applicant will give preference without discriminating, will give preference to those that are 62 years and older. Federal requirement for a senior living facility is 55. So you'll see an increase there of 7 years. Give preference to, and then also give preference without discrimination to those who live and or work in the city of Escalon. In addition, the applicant will hold the initial rent for a period of 2 years. So the initial rent, as stated in the staff report, proposed right now, $1,600. We'll hold that for 2 years. And then for a period of 5 years after the 2 years, we'll only increase about 50% of what is allowed under federal requirements for these types of projects. And so that is specified in the agreement. The project will be deed restricted to those that are 55 years and older. That'll be, again, a specific deed restriction that is associated with this project for those 55 years and older, again, with a preference for those 62 years and older. The site is laid out in a way that the required parking is in the front of the facility, in front of the parcel closest towards Countrywood Lane, and then the buildings are behind the parking. The community is fenced and gated for security reasons. There's 4 buildings proposed around the facility, so 3 in a U shape and then 1 in the middle. There's a trash enclosure, and the architecture, which is harder to describe, is again in the staff report and available for your review. The project does include the required 22 parking spaces. There are 4 parking spaces which are 3 feet narrower, so it would be compact parking spaces because of PG&E utility equipment that is along Countrywood. The code, the Escalon Municipal Code, does not specifically recognize compact spaces, but there are the 22 total spaces provided as is required. Let's see. There is a requirement, again, in the Escalon Municipal Code. It's called the Inclusionary Housing Ordinance, which states a developer will either build 10 to 15% of the total project size in affordable units, or will pay an in lieu fee for the eventual development of affordable units. The applicant is proposing to dedicate 2 of the 18 units for this low-income requirement, and those would be accommodated through a voucher system through the county. So with that overview of the project, staff would be happy to answer any questions prior to opening up the public hearing. And then we should probably have the applicant speak first and then public after that.
Anything?
No questions based on what we have right now.
I have a question regarding the increase in rent. You stated the based on federal? The state does not have a policy in place or a law in place? Would it have to also follow the state of California rent control laws?
Not rent control. This is not a great area of expertise for me. And so when the applicant comes up, I would defer that question to the applicant to be able to answer that specific question.
I don't have any other questions.
When it comes to residential property, we have the green waste and the trash, and we're encouraged to separate the two. When I went to Heritage House, they have the trash dumpster as we have, but there's no separation. And I think at the community center, there's no separation. So here, are we going to have separation? Do some entities not have to comply with?
Yeah, so as state law has changed over the last 10 years or so when it comes to recycling, originally most businesses who had bins had one bin. Everything was commingled. About 6 or 5 years ago, the state said now you have to recycle your organics separately. So businesses had to get a second bin for their organic waste, yard clippings, cardboard boxes, anything compostable. And so they had 2 separate ones. Some had a third bin for bottles, cans, those types of recyclables. State changed the law again when it comes to organic waste. Jilton, the city's franchise hauler, made big improvements to their facility where now they are separating material on their end. So many businesses were able to go back to one dumpster commingled. When it reaches the Jilton facility, they are separating it. Jilton makes that determination depending on what types of materials and the percentage of just landfill garbage to organic waste. If a business has a lot of organic waste, then Jilton says you need to have 2 separate ones separating that. If it's not a high quantity of organic waste, then they are able to just have one commingled.
Okay. I did have a concern about the distance of the trash enclosure from the farthest unit, say number 4. Thinking of seniors having to carry their trash that far, but maybe the proponent will be able to address that if there's some alteration that can be made. Also, there was a concern about, I don't remember if it was an emergency vehicle or dial-a-ride or some vehicle being able to pull in and whatnot. Was there any change due to that condition, or was that just an expressed concern and not, I don't remember specifically.
Did you say?
I'm
sorry.
Well, like if the ambulance were to pull in there, or the fire truck, or dial-a-ride, is there ample room? Or either an emergency or a ride, no alter?
Yeah, I know we have fire here. I'll let fire speak in that regard. We did put the turning radius, which, well, is found on one of the pages, in the site layout. It would be a 3-point turn that would be made there, but the 3-point turn is possible.
Okay.
With the transit bus, and then I can let fire speak how they would handle that situation.
If you're on Countrywood looking down the property toward the south, the masonry wall goes in, and then is that before the end of the property or at the end of the property? Because it's just a straight line on the maps and whatnot that we have. Maybe maybe it's.
What page are you looking at?
Well, all the pages, it just shows the straight line, straight wall toward the back, to the back. But when you look at the property, the masonry wall zigs and zags, so that might be beyond the lot of this proposal.
My fault, but I am not yet following the question. Are you saying the existing masonry wall behind the McDonald's, or are you saying?
Behind the residences.
This right here?
Yes. It's
If I
not?
remember correctly, it does have a little offset.
Is that before the edge of this proposal, or?
I believe it's within the area of the development.
Maybe that's
It was back
consequential.
here somewhere.
I'm not. So the question or comment is the existing wall there on the east side of the property has a jog?
I'm just looking for accuracy in the representation
property
of it.
line.
Yeah,
Are you asking if it's on the property line?
or accuracy in the plan is, I think.
Yeah, right back there. Is that might be the end of this property.
It's going to be the edge of the McDonald's wall straight
Okay,
across.
so that might be the same.
Might be past.
Okay. So one tree on Countrywood will have to be removed, but it looks like a couple more are added, so that's good.
Yeah, one tree, right, for the driveway to be installed, correct?
Okay.
Commissioner Dunbar?
I have no questions about this project.
I just had two. First one being, what is the state requirements for any EV chargings in a development like this? Is there any?
I don't. That would be a building code requirement. So if it's approved at this stage, they would submit construction drawings, which would go to our plan check company. And if EV chargers are required, they would ensure that they're shown on the plans.
I'm not a building code expert, but I'm pretty sure they're not required. But that will come eventually, I'm sure.
And then, and I'll ask the applicant, as well, but, so we've got 22 spots and 18 units. That doesn't leave a lot for any visitors. So the expectations would be that would overflow onto Countrywood?
If, right, so the code requires one parking space per each unit, and then essentially a fourth for every unit for visitors. And so that equates to the 22, the 18 plus the 4.
Yeah, maybe I'll ask the applicant, what happens if someone has two cars? Okay. Why don't we start with the applicant? You can come up and.
Good evening.
Hi.
My name is Jeff Sales, and I'm the applicant.
Maybe I'll just start with my parking question. What, are you assigning parking to each unit, or what happens if they have more than one vehicle?
I hadn't planned on assigning spaces. Typically, I do not, well, I would only rent to tenants that have one vehicle, because that's what it's designed for.
I have a question on the, I'll call it rent control. Staff mentioned federal. You're going to be complying, I'm assuming, with the state rent control laws?
Yeah, I'm not aware of any federal laws regarding the rent amounts. It is, yeah, what I am aware of is the state law that says there's a maximum of 5% plus the cost of living increase, which in the last few years has been around 9 or 10%.
Sorry, it wasn't in the staff report, it is state law. That's my mistake.
That's okay.
And just to be clear, it's 5% max plus cost of living, but that total cannot exceed 10%.
Yeah.
So even if the cost of living is 14% in 1 year, it can increase to 10%.
Yes, I only have a comment. I went by the space in Modesto today, and I just have to say it's beautiful. And I think it's very fitting for for where this is proposed. The finishes, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but they seem very similar.
Yeah.
And it was peaceful. It was after everybody's gotten off work. And it was nice to see in person. I wanted to make sure that I had eyes on it for something that was going to come here and be a senior housing. It looked like it started, based on the signage, that you started renting May of last year.
Correct, yeah.
So do you know what level of occupancy you're at?
Just like 3 left.
3 left. Yeah, it was very clean, very nice. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Again, I have a concern for seniors. Their cars are gonna sit in the sun and heat up, and they're gonna walk out and get in a hot car. And maybe with 22 spots, there's not a lot of room to put in a carport or do anything, but did you give that a thought? Did you rule it out?
I did. We kind of went for the shade tree option, which will keep some of the sun off.
Dunbar, any questions for the applicant?
No questions at this time. The project appears to be very satisfactory.
Thank you. So at 8:26, we can open it up to public comment for anybody to.
Just a couple of things. I'm for this project too. Thank you for bringing senior housing to Escalon. The 2 low-income housing, are those deed restricted?
So yes,
That's a 50-year deed restriction on this one?
they are deed restricted as well, and then they would be low income through a voucher system through the county.
Okay, yeah, that wasn't clear. I noticed where the parking lot is, and I look at the rear of the property. You're looking at 55 and 62-year-old people going down ways there. Are those the walkways covered? Protect them from the rain, slippage, things of that nature? I couldn't tell from the drawing. It might be something to consider because it's a decent way, and I think Mr. Dunlap asked for some non-slip surface at McDonald's for the walkway for the students to get in there. Maybe consideration for some seniors along that line and/or coverage over that walkway to help keep the rain off them when they're bringing their groceries in or whatever else they're doing. So just a thought. Thank you.
The walkways are not proposed to be covered at this time. There is in front of most doors a patio, but not all doors.
Anyone else care to comment on the project? And at 8:20, or anybody online for this one?
No hands raised.
All right, so at 8:20, we'll close the public comment for this project and bring it back to commission for any discussion or motions.
I think there should be a gate in the wall so they can go directly to McDonald's.
I just had one question. Is it no parking along Countrywood right there? Street parking?
We have looked at this, and we believe there will be parking on both sides, so street parking on both sides.
I was pleasantly surprised that once the lot split happened and McDonald's went in, how quickly this site we found a potential use for. And I'm really glad that our seniors will have an opportunity for housing, and along with those that are less fortunate with the low income. So I'm real pleased with that it wasn't a lot that sat vacant for years. I have no other comments.
Is there any need, or would the city be interested in a yearly report of who the occupants, are they local, are their age? I don't know if we're holding the applicant to any of those requirements. I know it's without prejudice, but we're at where it's in there. Should we ask for it?
Yeah, I certainly think that is valuable information and, is certainly, I think, an appropriate request of the applicant. We can certainly ask of it. I would encourage the applicant to confirm or deny that they would provide that.
Does that need to be in the condition, or is that just
Maybe just a nod? Yeah, and then anything that is not specified in the staff report and it is desirous to the planning commission, I would suggest in the motion including that.
Me too. I'm very excited to see this
It's my daughter's phone.
This project come up. So
The dog likes it too.
yeah.
I was like, where's that coming from?
All right, it's my daughter's phone. I forgot I took it from her.
Where was I?
Sorry.
I'm very excited to see this come up. Was also surprised that it came up so quickly. I'm happy for the two houses across the street on Countrywood who had some objections with McDonald's there, and I think that McDonald's has worked out very nice, and this will just be a real nice buffer transition from McHenry into the neighborhood. With that, I'll make a motion to approve resolution PC 2024-1, recommending the City of Escalon City Council consider adoption of an ordinance establishing planned development 3, PD3, approve the site and architecture as described in these documents, find the project CEQA categorically exempt under section 15332, infill development, and authorize staff to file the notice of exemption, and with the addition of the applicant to supply the city a yearly report of tenancy characterization, age and location.
Over the years, there have been so many seniors that have moved out of town, and this will prevent at least 17 of them. So I second the motion.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed? Okay. Motion passes 5-0.
Is that yours? This is mine.
Yeah.
I won't be quick.
Yeah.
Are you okay time-wise, or do you want to take a break?
I'm okay.
Keep rolling?
Well, let's see.
Okay.
Those country kids, people are gonna get rowdy.
Okay, now moving on to our third project of the night, which is Project 23-790, Site and Architecture again, for 760 Escalon Avenue, APN number 227-040-250-000.
Thank you, Chair. Again, Jalen French. What we will share is a bit redundant, but we want to frame it in the same way each time. So the commission and the public is aware of what is before the Planning Commission. So the application before the Planning Commission is for site and architecture. There are the 23 findings that we've discussed in the last two items to be made for approval, and Planning Commission is the determining body on this action, so no subsequent determination by the City Council unless appealed. So the project description, the proposed project, is to develop a 7,271 square foot commercial building to become a meat market, a retail meat cutting, packaging, and sales business. The property is located on Escalon Balota, north of 120, directly across from Escalon Feed and the Hogan Park. The zoning of the property was recently split. There is an existing residential house on the property to the north within a C2 zone, so community commercial zoning classification, and the proposed use is for retail sales, which is consistent with the C2 zone. The CEQA determination, categorical exemption per section 15332, infill development. The site itself is 0.732 or 23 acres, so just below 3/4 of an acre. The project includes a circulation flow around a centralized building, the 7,271 square foot building. So traffic, both retail sales and deliveries, will come on the southern driveway and around and exit onto the northern driveway, with parking both for primarily the customers in front of the building as well as for the employees in the back of the building. The project currently does not meet the 10% landscape requirement. And I'll just talk about parking in the same breath. So, and we'll all understand why in a second. The proposed parking, the proposed project's requirement for parking is 29 spaces. 30 spaces are provided. The applicant is requesting, per the Escalon Municipal Code, a 10% reduction of the parking requirement, lowering it from 29 to 26, that 10%. If that is approved, those parking spaces will go to landscape, and then the project would meet the 10% landscape requirement per the code. There are 2 walls proposed on this project. Behind the parcel where there is an existing residential neighborhood, there is a required 8-foot wall which is being proposed. The property to the south is zoned commercially, and therefore there is no wall requirement between 2 commercially zoned properties. Nevertheless, the applicant has proposed a 6-foot masonry wall in between that southern boundary. So there's the 8-foot wall required to the east, and then the 8-foot or the 6-foot wall proposed to the southern boundary. The architecture, we have worked with the applicant. There has been proposed some enhanced elements. There's a differentiation of materials. There's some rock on all 4 sides of the building. At the bottom portion, there's banding, there's different coloration of the building. So in that stretch, it has come a long way. Staff says in the staff report, there's still some elements that could be improved in terms of the architecture, in my mind, to really turn it from an industrial-looking building into more of a commercial-looking building, fitting with the zone. So that is, the summary of the staff report. Since the staff report has been released, really developed and then released, we have received a couple of comment letters, which the commission does have. Both were added to the agenda package for everyone to pull, and then provided in hard copy, and then provided in hard copy out at the front as well. Some concern letters, primarily precipitated by the business to the south, the Country Kids Child Development Center, who has expressed concerns, and I will not speak for them, but generally outlined in the staff report and in the letter, some concerns about the intensity of the use adjacent to their facility, the size of the use adjacent to their facility, the cleanliness and health components associated with the use of the facility. Now, there's some air quality issues, there's some visibility issues with the children that are there, what are they able to see? Predominantly, we will let the applicant respond to some of those concerns, but also shared in hard copy with the commission and with the public out there is a response letter to each point from the Country Kids letter of concern that identifies the response to each concern stated. And that, again, is available to both the commission and the public. There have subsequently been 1 or 2 phone calls that the city has received in one letter, which, again, is available to you, from a parent of a child that goes to the facility. And again, when the applicant comes, they can speak to some of the raised concerns. Some of it, from staff's viewpoint, without having heard from those who concern, are surrounding what is to transpire at this use. And we, staff, will just speak to it from a code perspective. This is a commercial zone. Staff feels that this is a commercial use proposed within a commercial zone. We specifically looked up industrial type uses in food processing, which are industrial uses that are not allowed in the C2 zone. Food processing, and it specifically speaks to poultry, small game, and dairy. Dairy processing is, turning raw milk into either, treated milk or a different product. Poultry processing and small game processing is the actual process of either slaughtering or taking an animal and removing the parts that aren't used for meat. The head, the hooves, taking the insides out. That, as we have heard from the applicant, is not happening at this facility. That will happen off-site, and processed, clean carcasses will come to this facility, be cut, wrapped, and ultimately sold. This is how staff understands it from the applicant. Again, we will have the applicant. So we, from a staff standpoint, want to express what could be considered the industrial component. The processing of the carcasses is not something that transpires here. And so we want to share that with the commission up front. And again, those who have concerns about that and the applicant can speak to that. So with that, again, we, staff, are happy to answer any questions that the commission may have before we turn it to the applicant and then open it up for the public hearing.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Dunbar, why don't we start with you this time?
I don't have any concerns. I may have some after I hear the applicant, but at this time, nothing.
None at this time.
And for me.
Okay. Great. So why don't we open up the public hearing and have the applicant step forward?
Hi, Jason Coops, co-owner for Austin Meat Service.
Hello. Could you, what Jalen described, maybe I won't use the word processing, but the way you handle the meat, could you describe how it goes about in your business?
Yeah, so it'll be kind of like Jalen said, it'll be two separate things going on there. There will be a storefront, which is all USDA inspected, that the public can come in and buy. That is just like your standard store for meat, Marvell, whoever you want to call, that would be what that is. The other part of it would be the custom butchering side. If you're not familiar with that, so I'll just give you an example. The dairymen and the ranchers in the area, if they are raising their own animals, they want to fill their freezer. Obviously, they call an independent ranch butcher that'll come out, harvest the animal on their facility, dress the animal, which means all the innards, head, skin, everything was removed. The clean carcass will be then brought to us in a pickup truck or a trailer behind a pickup truck, and then offloaded at our facility in the back of the place and brought in through the back right into a cooler. And then from there, we will cut and wrap it to the customer specifications. And again, that animal will go right back to the customer.
How does the waste products, how do you deal with
so that? So what we get back, or what we get from the harvest animal is just meat and bone. The remainders that doesn't go back to the customer will go into a tallow barrel, which is just a standard barrel with a lid sealed up, and that product stays inside the shop, inside of our cooler, until pickup, usually about once a week, and it's a truck about the size of the garbage truck that comes to your house. It's about that. It's obviously for tallow, and that gets picked up once a week, and he's there for maybe 15 minutes, unloads them all, the barrels have been cleaned, and then stored away.
And I noticed you've got 4 loading docks, is that right?
So they're not loading docks. Only those are just for the ease of, for us bringing in boxes and stuff, supplies that we use for the shop. They are just roll-up doors in the back just for convenience. No other reason for that. There is a possibility of a single semi-truck that comes once a year, and that is usually in the summertime when the 4-H kids and the FFA kids have their fairs, and though we get a large volume of animals at that time, and it's usually a single truck once a year that comes in. And again, he's there for however long it takes us to unload those animals, maybe 30 minutes, and then he's gone, and then we won't see him again until next year. And that's if they use a 53-foot truck or a 40-foot truck, which most of the time it's just a bobtail and a 30-footer that will bring those animals in.
We are pulling up an exhibit can you just share on the exhibit, which one is the loading and which are the roll-up, you know?
I'm sorry?
So the exhibit, which one is the?
Oh, so actually the smaller door will be the door where the animals would be going right into the cooler. The bigger doors are, again, just for, we get cardboard boxes, we'll offload them with forklifts. Again, that's probably once a year. We don't go through that many. The other roll-up doors are just for no reason, just to put a door there. We didn't see a reason not to, so just for the ease of in and out stuff, there was no reason extra for that.
Dunbar, anything? Sorry, Van Dyke.
Is there a reason you're not fencing in the back for security or anything like that? It's going to be pretty free flow traffic.
Our property goes to the wall. I believe that's already existing, or maybe a fence that's there to the neighbors. So I'm not too worried about.
I mean, like a rolling or a security gate or anything like that to get to the back. It
Oh,
looks
to
like
get to the back? No. Okay. I'm not worried about that.
No.
I have a couple questions. I heard that you're going to have semi-deliver meat once a year. That's the only time for commercial use you're going to have carcasses delivered?
No, so that'll be just when it's a big volume from the 4-H kids and the FFA kids. Throughout the year, it'll be ranch butchers, which are they just use their pickup trucks or tow a small trailer behind it. So the large volume from a semi truck is just for, typically it's Ag Fest, and we just get a large volume at that time.
Okay, so large trucks that are going to be delivering carcasses, it's more than once a year?
No.
So I'm a consumer. I'm going to go in, I'm going to buy, whatever you're selling. I'm going to buy, 20 pounds of whatever. Could be a carcass that's been in your freezer a year?
No, so like I said, there was two separate.
Trying to determine.
Right. So the two separate businesses, the two separate businesses are the storefront, and that will be a delivery with a bobtail about once a week or once every 2 weeks. Usually it's once a week. That's the size of like a UPS truck. They just come once a week, deliver whatever it is that we order for the storefront, and that's what that is.
And the delivery time for these trucks will be?
Usually mid-morning.
Okay.
Yeah.
Aren't your normal work hours?
Yes, normal work. Everything's normal work hours. Nothing really happens after hours or before. It's, we're 8 to 5:30 at our other store, and that's efficient.
What do you perceive the maximum number of employees you're going to have?
Throughout the year, maybe 6. During the busy time with the fairs, we might add, usually we get some high school kids or something that, want to help out and help clean up in the afternoon. So we might add 1 or 2 just for part-time.
Last question, the dumpster in the corner, what type of materials are you throwing in there? So we actually talked about that, and we really didn't want that. We don't need that, but I know it's a city requirement. So it's just going to be our trash, which is right now in our Ripon facility. We have just 2 black trash cans like we have in front of our homes. And we fill about 1 to 1.5 of those a week. And now all that is just simple supplies, plastic wraps, employee lunches that they're throwing, that they're discarding. But there's no animal waste that goes in there. All that goes in the tallow buckets. And the last question, and this is, for safety and theft and stuff, are you gonna have any lighting around the building? And if you are, is it gonna be in such a way that it's not gonna be glaring into your neighbors behind you?
Absolutely. So we'll have whatever lighting is, we don't need a lot of lighting in the back, maybe just some dim lighting for night, but definitely not wanting to, impose on the neighbors in the back or anywhere but around us. Lighting in the front, efficient enough to see, but yeah, that's it.
I just want to add a little clarification to the issue regarding the trash, what do we call that?
Enclosure.
The trash enclosure. So the applicant did petition the city to not have, what we would consider in a commercial zone, the required trash enclosure. They did share with us, as it was just shared here, that carcass material, anything that may be a health concern, is not thrown away in that enclosure, but is stored in the tallow buckets. Staff has to think of this in the long term. We are often petitioned to not do costly improvements like trash enclosures because the applicant will say, oh, I don't have that much garbage, it's not that big a deal. We will, if we agree, we'll later find out that there is a lot of garbage and it becomes an issue. Further, we also don't know long-term, whether it's 5, 10, 100 years, we don't know what could ultimately come into that building subsequently. We never want to talk about, a business going out of business, but it happens from time to time. And so staff has to think long-term. So with the understanding of what is to be thrown in there, cardboard boxes, any sort of day-to-day material that you would have in an office setting, and that's what's to be used, staff felt comfortable not only requiring the trash enclosure, but placing it where it is, which is the most logical place for it from a garbage truck standpoint.
Not all of my questions deal with site and architecture. Just to verify, your meat source is pretty much local, all local? How far away does the meat have to travel?
Are you talking about the cut and wrap side of it?
Yeah, well, either side.
Well, we use a wholesaler for our storefront, so that comes, we get that out of Sacramento. Obviously, it's delivered in a cold box. The cut and wrap, we get fares from the Bay Area to up in the hills. Ranchers from all over, dairymen from all over who, want to use us. They will ship their animals to us via the ranch butcher.
Okay. In the hours of operation, it said 9 p.m. Is that true? You operate until 9 p.m.? No.
Our typical hours are 8 to 5:30 Monday to Friday and 9 to 5:30 on Saturday, close on Sunday.
Okay. Customers, are they mostly individuals, restaurants?
Mostly locals. Again, like the ranchers and the dairies that will use us for the cut and wrap side. The storefront can be anybody, obviously, who walks in our door.
And the telephone pole that's out front, is that going to be removed? Can those services be undergrounded, or?
I believe the service is underground or will be. The telephone pole, I don't think PG&E, I don't think we're moving that. It would be nice, but I don't think we are.
Okay. And you talked about unloading the carcasses. It'll be outside the building or inside the building?
They're outside, and then there's a rail system that will actually come out, and it just hooks to the carcass right out of the guy's truck. It rolls in, so it's outside for, just a few minutes until we roll it right in the cooler.
Okay. As far as the masonry wall that is between you and the daycare, there's concern there. Is it possible that you could make it taller? If it's 6 feet, make it 8 feet?
I'm sure that probably is not going to be a problem.
And what about if there's concern about vehicles behind backing into it? What about putting bollards in, just from the back of the building to the edge of the lot, just to serve as another barrier in case a vehicle is backing up too quickly or something?
There's really nobody backing up there, but I mean, we could do what is necessary. And even the semi truck that comes through there, he's just gonna roll around and pull up. There's not gonna be there's no docking, so there's nobody backing up to.
Well, it looks like a good flow with a one-way in and then out, but you have got some parking back there, so I just wondered. And there's a mention of cooking meat on site. Is that like tri-tip and whatnot?
It is, and it's just a backyard barbecue is all it is, like a pellet grill.
All the time, or just
That's for the
as
cooking
needed?
side of it. So we have it in the rip and store. People will call and say, hey, can you cook me up a tri-tip or a rack of ribs? And we'll do that for them. And they come by, at closing time and pick it up, obviously take it home and have dinner that night. That's all that's for.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Dunbar?
Yes, I do have a question. You mentioned that the tallow barrels will be picked up by a truck. I'm assuming they're going to a rendering plant or a tallow plant?
Correct.
Okay, I've seen some of those trucks, and certain times of the year, they're hauling carcasses. Will they be hauling carcasses through your parking lot?
No, so that's a different kind of truck. I know what you're talking about. Those are the trucks that go to ranches that maybe cattle have died, and they're picking those
Right.
up. That's a different truck than what will be showing up at our place.
So there's not going to be one of those
Well, there won't be hooves
aromatic
sticking out of the
trucks?
stock, no. No.
Okay. And how often, you said that you cook for people who, to order. How often does that occur? Is that every day, or is that sporadic, or do you limit that to weekends?
It is sporadic. We can go, 2 days in a row, and then we can have nothing for 2 days. It just depends on a customer who maybe calls and asks for it, or they don't.
Okay. That's all I have. Thank you.
I have one more question. I was looking at the layout of the building and the square footage, and that's on A100. If I add up all of the calculations for the different areas, I come up with a different square footage than your proposed building. Your proposed is 7271. I'm coming up with 6626. So there's a difference of 645 square feet. I don't know where that is.
Is that the?
I'm not sure. It may have been an error. I don't know exactly.
Oh, your building actually might be smaller than that.
Correct.
I can understand the walls and the interior walls, but that shouldn't come up to almost 10% of the building size.
I'd have to get with my architect on that one.
Might want to ask him. Or there's an area in here that wasn't calculated.
Okay.
Okay. That's the last question I have.
I had one more.
I have another question. I'm sorry. I'm thinking about the shop in Lockford. And when I drive past there on the weekends, there are 15, 20 people standing outside, sometimes more. Where are you going to put those people if, hopefully, you're that popular?
That would be nice.
The parking lot will be full.
Where am I going to put the vehicles or the people?
No, the people. If you've got 30 people, and I'm not being silly here. If you've been to the Lockford Butcher Shop, you know that's an average number. So where are you going to put the people if they're lining up to come see you?
So our storefront inside is plenty big to hold 30 people. Unlike Lockford, I think they can hold about 4 people at a time, maybe. Our storefront is large enough to accommodate that.
Okay, and you're not worried about parking if there's 30 cars pulling up?
I'm not worried about parking, no. We, at the Ripon store, I'm just using that as an example, we have 2 spots right in front of our building. And it's rarely an issue, maybe on a Saturday, but there's other parking, there's street parking that is there.
Right.
And that's, I mean, we really don't have more than 10 people in our store, and that's pushing it. Usually it's 1 or 2.
Okay, thank you.
I just wanted to clarify one more thing on the waste that we're talking about going in the tallow buckets. What is driving how you get rid of that? Is it the USDA? What is the why do you go about that, and would that change?
When we're butchering a carcass, there is parts of the animal the customer does not want back.
Mm.
He doesn't need the big, excuse me from the graphics, but he doesn't need a big slab of fat, or he doesn't need the femur bone wrapped up and put in his freezer that he can't use. So he will give us a cut sheet of how he would like that animal cut up and processed, and we go by that cut sheet, and then anything he doesn't want, mainly bone and trimmed fat, everything else we will grind in a hamburger for him. But for that part of it, he doesn't need the bone and excess fat, so that's what's going in the tallow bucket.
Basically, it's your program requirements and nothing driving, no legal driving. So you just, okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
So still have a large crowd here, so I'd like to open it up for anybody to speak in favor or against. Could we just have a quick show again of how many people are thinking of speaking tonight, so we can just gauge it? Okay, so why don't we just to keep things fair, we'll keep it at 3 minutes as well, and we'll go from there. Okay, thank you.
Captain Joseph Gilroy. First off, with Country Kids, we do not oppose this project or the location of it. However, as business owners, parents, teachers, and students, we have our concerns over the current layout regarding the project. We'd just like to take this opportunity to voice our concerns and to publicly state that we would like to work with the developer and the business owner to find a mutually agreeable solution to our concerns that benefit both parties. 3 big major concerns right now are the trash being located on the south side. They can promise up and down that they're going to only throw cardboard or this or that, but there's no regulation that states that they can't throw other items in there as well. We would like to see that be relocated to the northwest side of the property, away from the houses behind their proposed project, as well as to the south side with Country Kids. Also, the driveway and the proposed location of the refrigeration units on the south side of the roof line. The driveway, the concern is if a vehicle was to back or drive into that wall. A good solution for that would be an 8-foot steel reinforced concrete wall and bollards, as I believe was proposed by one of your commissioners. And to relocate the refrigeration units to the north side to prevent noise, both for the neighbors behind and to us on the south side. It would greatly reduce the risk of an accident or something happening to a child or an employee on the south side or to a resident behind them. Additional concern is hazardous materials. They are dealing with biohazard, blood and animal waste, and they're going to have to use chemicals to clean up after that waste. Typical chemicals used are ammonia, hydrogen peroxide, sodium hypochlorite, peracetic acid. All of them are considered acutely hazardous materials. However, on their application, it was left blank. We would like to be advised as to how they plan to disinfect and maintain health code and sanitary environment for their operation. We'd also like clarification. The builder submitted a response to our concern on March 8th that addressed actually most of our concerns directly. However, it was not made publicly available to us until just prior to the meeting. As well as our opposition letter was not made publicly available until yesterday. We would just like clarification on the legal requirement of when these documents are required to be made publicly available.
Thank you.
Very good at this. I don't like public speaking, but
Okay.
I've been an employee of the Development Center for 27 years. My kids went there, my grandkids went there, my great-grandchildren are there. I'm worried about their health. I'm worried about the kids' health. I'm worried about the trauma. If you've ever taken care of little kids, it's like herding cats. So I'm worried about the trauma that they're going to have if they see the carcasses going in and out. And they're going to be curious because that lot has been empty forever. I was worried about the letter too, but he addressed that. We're concerned about how the city came to the conclusion that this was the best option and layout for the business. The business is massive, much more than a retail market. There are way too many unknowns for protecting the kids. Right now, what they would be exposed to is chemicals, smoke, bad smells, flies, seeing skinned animals from standing on playground equipment. And there's the hazard of trucks and vehicles crashing through the fence and the fumes and noise from the trucks, as this appears within 3 to 5 feet from our playground. Can't the city and business go back and change things with country kids to address the concerns that make sure our young children are protected? There's the letter. And we would like, if you will go to have a meeting with Jeff Briggs, we want the in and out reversed so that the most traffic won't be coming closest to us. We have little kids and we do have a 6-foot cement wall through part of it, but the rest of it is all chain link. And we have stuff up to keep the people from looking in, but it's still a hazard for our children. If one of those trailers works the wrong way or comes in, and I find it hard to believe that they only get a big quantity at fair. Is it for Sound King, Stanislaus? How many fairs do they get it from? So you're going to be getting more than one truck a year. And I know a lot of people had opposition about, well, kids should know where they come from. True, but that should be a parental thing, not, I can see it. What if I don't want my kid to know that yet? As far as I'm concerned, my chicken comes in a little pack with no skin and no bones, okay? Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Karen Machado. I am a resident of Escalon. I have not previously submitted a written or phone call opposition, but I'd like to state for the record, I am opposed to this project. I did drive by it the other day. Also for the record, I live about a mile away. I did drive by it the other day. It is flanked by houses to the right, houses behind, and a business to the other side. And I'm concerned with the volume of traffic that's going to be coming in and out of this site. I'm concerned with the scale of this building. I am concerned for the children. And I think my biggest thing here is just because you can doesn't mean you should. I'm not saying I'm opposed to businesses or new businesses being in Escalon. I know that we need the tax revenue. I'm aware of that. But just thinking about the weirdness of animals being butchered next to where children are playing is just awfully strange. And I'm just going to say it. That's weird juju. I'm just going to put it out there. If I was a parent, I would not want to have my kid at this school. I would say, no, that's weird. And I would pull them out of the school. So I'm concerned that this business has been here for a really long time. I'd like to see them continue to flourish and grow. But I think there's going to be other people like me. There's some weird people like me out there that we're going to be like, oh, no, that's weird. There's a possibility, like they said, that our kid could look over and see this cow on a hook being trailered into the building, or whatever they call it, carried into the building. And again, I'm not opposed to new businesses coming to Escalon. I just feel that overall that this site is wrong for this business. Thank you.
Peter Krummick. I think you guys got the last two decisions right, so hopefully you can bat 3 for 3 tonight. I live right next to this property, and I've got my own little mini country kids on my side. I have 4 little kids from 5 to 10 years old. I am not concerned that they're going to back a truck through my wooden fence. I'm not asking them to put up an 8-foot concrete reinforced steel fence. I think it is extremely exciting. I think the layout of the building, the way it looks, is beautiful. I think that you guys, you know, again, you get all these people that get bothered by these things. Like the question, what happens with the waste? How do they clean up after themselves? Well, they know how to do that. They're going to do the right thing. They have another business in Ripon. Okay, it's not like they're going to be throwing it, you know, into the dirt next to my house and then it's going to contaminate my water. Okay, you have a beautiful business. It's zone C2. They've laid it out perfectly. It looks amazing. I'm not concerned. I live right next door to it. I'm going to be looking at that more than anybody else in town. I think it looks beautiful. I'm not concerned with the height. I'm not concerned with the traffic. I'm not concerned if my kids walk out and they see a carcass being, okay, I'll be like, hey, this is a butcher shop. This is what they do. Let me tell you about that. Okay? I'm not concerned with any of that stuff. And so I think you got to look at it from both sides. I hate to be opposed to country kids. I really do. But I am 100% in favor of this project. It's zone commercial. That's what is supposed to go in there. You know, forget all the stuff about tax revenue and stuff. I don't worry about that. This is a family that's trying to expand and bring something nice to the town because they think it's going to benefit the town. I've talked to Ken Van Gorkum. He runs Escalon Feed. He's excited about the project. A lot of the same customers go back and forth. This is what that property is designed for. It's not meant to just sit there and be dirt, okay? This is perfect. I mean, it's a perfect project. You guys have to approve this, okay? Thank you.
Thank you.
My name's Danielle Ratto. I live in town here. I also have 2 small children, one in daycare, one that just finished preschool. Although I understand your concerns as a parent, but this is not one that I would have for my children. I think this community thrives on agriculture, and I think this is a small business that is going to help the agriculture community, and I think we need to be in support of it rather than try to drive it away, or if we need to find a way to come together so that we can make this something better for our community and support them.
So my name is Melissa. I'm actually a mom that has her kids at Country Kids. And I'm not against it either. What I would like to say is that it is going to be a business that's going to be open to the public. So there's going to be people coming in and out and just being so close to kids, that's kind of my concern. We don't know their history. We don't know if they're pedophiles. We don't know what they do. So truck drivers and all this stuff that's going to be coming in and out. I guess it would just, like, my solution to these things would be building a higher fence on the side of Country Kids, cameras as well. So just kind of something that makes it more comfortable for us parents to have our kids there and have them, you know, want us to have them there. So, and I'd be kind of concerned about all this public traffic that's going to be so close to our kids. Okay, well, that's pretty much it. I'm sorry, I'm super nervous, but I'm new in town, and I actually bought in 2020 out here, so I'm, like, new to the community, and I want to see it grow, but I also want my kid to be safe. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
My name is Tracy De Silva. I'm a longtime resident of Escalon. I am in favor of this business, one, because it is locally owned and operated by children or people who have children in our community, both here in Escalon and in Ripon. I understand the preschools, daycares, concerns, what have you, but also in terms of it being a choice for people to send their children there, and therefore, if they choose to send their children somewhere where it happens to be next to a business that not only services the local community, but also can serve as an educational location for not only the preschool, but the community in general. You made some comments about regarding waste material and this and that. But same could be said for a daycare in terms of there's blood, there's feces, urine, other bodily fluids that are constantly being cleaned up. And nobody questions your tactics because there are legal and hygienic ways of doing so. Same is going to be happening at the meat market. In terms of the parking and the trucks coming in and out, Country Kids is located on a very busy area of McHenry Avenue. And so there's no comments or concerns in regards to the constant traffic crossing past your facility. So I would have faith in the fact that the person's coming in and out of an established business, whether it be to be a customer of or be a vendor of, they'll be aware of what's happening, especially with the way that they have the incoming, the one-way in and out. And third, in terms of being fearful of the children seeing carcasses, one, there is also a monitoring factor in terms of your staff and of the parents being mindful of that possibility. If your kids or the kids from the daycare are looking over a fence that's 6 foot tall, most kids in preschool are about, 2 foot tall? If not, I don't know. But in terms of your supervision, I would keep that in mind as well. Also, on the other side of your daycare is also a vet office where animals are being brought in on a day-to-day basis as well, being injured, ran over, burnt, hit, abused, and or having just been operated on. And those are just as much or more so exposed than what Mr. Coops had described, how their animals would be brought in and out of the facility. So I just wanted you guys to keep that all in mind and maybe educate yourselves a little bit more on the process of these types of businesses, because it's, I feel like a lot of the comments and misperceptions of not educating yourself. Maybe go into the Ripon facility and see how they run things. It might do some good. I mean, sorry, I know it's a little scattered, but thank you.
Hi, I'm Samantha. I am an employee at Country Kids. I live in the city. Basically, we are not against the business. We are not against it being behind Country Kids. We would love it there. Basically, our biggest concern would be the traffic flow. If it was just reversed, because that's the biggest thing. We're worried about people coming around that corner too fast and hitting our wall, taking out our kids. Our playground literally backs up into that fence. I know she mentioned the vet. We're way off the street from that. We're way off the street from seeing anything over there, but our playground would back up into where the animals would be brought in and where the trucks would be coming through. I think the biggest issue is just reversing everything, the dumpster on the other side, so we don't have to deal with that. And then with the refrigeration, it being on the north side, because the sun does hit on the south side pretty hard and it does get pretty hot. So it would be causing extra noise from the heat, having to work a little bit harder. But I just want to state for the record, we are not opposed to it at all. We're not opposed to new businesses coming into town. We just want to make sure that our kids are safe. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Carol Sletton, and I have a granddaughter that I take to the preschool. And it's not just preschool kids that are 2 and 3 feet high. They also serve before and after school care, summer care, holiday care for school-age children as well. And I have the concern about the construction of this, and has the ground been tested for potential spores that would cause valley fever, or any kind of nitrates that might be in the ground that would be kicked up in the dust, or any kind of lead? I don't know that has been done. And during the process, even a 6-foot or even an 8-foot fence, that dust isn't going to be able to be kept down. It will be exposed to the kids that are literally right there playing. And it'll be a constant dusting off of they have so much equipment out there. It's just the funnest place for the kids to play. And not only in the air, but on all of their equipment, and what's going to be taken in through their eyes, their nose, and their mouth that can be ingested. And then as far as the noise goes, this is preschool. This is when the children are starting to learn how to focus, how to concentrate, and how to learn. And with all the noise that's going to be going on during construction, and maybe not so much during the business portion of it, I think that's going to be very distracting to the children. And I know my granddaughter has fears of noises, and I'm sure there are other children that do too. And so I'm concerned about the noise factor, as well as what's already been brought up several times, and how close that the driveway is going to be to this fence. I mean, literally 3 to 5 feet away is a concern. I like the ideas that came up with, I don't recall what they're called, but having the metal in there so that, because brick walls, you can crash through those. Those can be taken out. So that's my concern as far as the safety goes. And I don't know if I can ask about the tallow. Only thing that I can vision, because I live out in the country and there's, the garbage trucks come and they scoop up and then they dump out. How high are these body parts going to be getting dropped into a garbage can? And I just think that is also another concern of mine. And thank you for your time.
Anybody else from the audience? Online? Okay. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate all the comments. So at 9:25, we'll close the public hearing and bring it back to commission for discussion.
Jalen, you mentioned that the appearance of the building could be dressed up a bit in your view. What did you think would be needed, or is it already incorporated into it?
The applicant has come a very long way. I think the front, as you see here, is very nice. There are some stretches along the sides and the back that are relatively plain. It is a metal building, except for a 3-foot band, I think, 2-foot band, 2.5-foot band on the bottom. When you look at the site and architecture code, which I'm just pulling up here, the type of material, the differentiation of material that is used on the wall, the long expanses. They have added some windows. Again, they've added the band. We are generally, I think they've met the check marks on that. But overall, it could be construed as like an industrial type building. And so there's some thought that I think should be just put into this.
Dollar General, we had trellises put on next to the building with some plants. But it's like on the south side, if there's just a wall there, nobody's going to see it.
Is there a way to bring up the response letter? Because I did not see that in my packet. I'm looking for it now.
I don't have it electronically, but I can grab one from the table.
That was the main driver of what I was asking, because
One right there.
Yeah.
I was trying to clarify the concerns, but I might have an old one, but I have two different.
So I need that one back.
Okay. Thank
Can we
you.
read it together?
Reading through there, there were some comments about the flow of traffic, say coming in on the right and leaving on the left. Is there any type of restriction if that could be reversed? Nothing in any code that says you have to enter a parking lot on the right?
Yeah, no. No, certainly from the city standpoint, from a code standpoint, there's no preference. I mean, we would not, I think, get into that level unless there was an obvious concern. And I don't want to minimize the express concern, but this is typical of any business that is, being placed next to existing uses, right? So there's nothing that would require us, but there's nothing that says it has to be that way either. It's, I think from a staff standpoint, it would be a non-issue.
Seems like going in on the right, coming out on the left is safer as far as the daycare. If it was going in on the left and going forward, heading toward the daycare wall, that would be worse than this depiction right here.
Question. How large is the signage on the building? Does that meet code?
As proposed in the plans, it's conceptual. At time of building permit, they would submit a building permit application.
Okay, so even though I guess the signage is not part of the architectural part of it?
Yeah, it's conceptual. I don't have a detail on the exact size of the letters. Our sign code says 24 inches, I think, is the maximum. If they wanted to go larger than that, they would come back to you with a enhanced sign permit.
I think so to your point, the unspoken subtext here is that what is proposed would be consistent with the city's sign ordinance when we get into building permit.
Is it possible to have the trash enclosure up toward the front? Sacrifice a parking spot for the trash? So the flies, odor, whatever might not be as noticeable to residents and playgrounds?
So I understand the comment, the question. I think our code, many cities go out of their way to screen, hide, get out of the public site as best as possible these trash enclosures. So locating it in the back, not adjacent to McHenry, where you have,
Like the senior center has their trash.
I'm not saying it has never happened. There's certain site dynamics that, would preclude or encourage one to do that. But we have significant amount of code that tries to screen them, tries to beautify them, tries to get them out of, the public eye.
Diana, could you pull up the Google map? I'm wondering if, zoom in a little bit more. So I'm just wondering, the concern about children being on the playground equipment and seeing over a potentially 8-foot fence and maybe seeing a carcass pulled off of a truck for a minute or so. I wonder if in that back corner we could consider some sort of screening to maybe extend out just a little bit farther on that back corner of the building, just to block off that line of sight a little bit. I was trying to see where the playground equipment would be in relation to the building.
I think there is.
Thinking of metal or wood or anything? continue the wall?
Just eyeballing it, it looks like the back of the building would be about where that easternmost concrete slab is. Not quite.
So the applicant suggested he would put a 6-foot concrete block wall along Country Kids is?
Correct.
I'm trying to think of who's gonna look over a 6-foot concrete wall.
If you're on the monkey bars or something.
You're out of order.
I think the concern is someone who, a child that is on an apparatus, a play equipment that is elevated.
Or climbing the tree, maybe.
Hope they don't climb trees.
Well, I think an 8-foot tall masonry wall would go a long way, but do you think you need another?
I wonder if it could step down, and because that back wall is going to be 8 foot, and if it returned and came 8 foot to just past that building corner, and just kept that extra 2 feet of visibility being blocked, it's the same material. He did mention that he was okay with going up in height, but then that's not adding the extra cost.
Diana, bring the cursor over just a little bit more. Okay, like if the edge of the playground is right there, the 8-foot extension could end there. I don't know if there's playground equipment in this area or not that they would be able to see over, but then they're out of line of sight with the loading anyway.
You're in here. I don't know about here. Yeah, I don't know what's here.
It looks like halfway between the edges of the property. 8-foot wall.
I'm just looking at it, right? Is there playground? Is there playground further to the east?
It looks like it's right behind it.
building? The whole side, okay. That has elevated apparatus, okay. I keep saying apparatus, is probably not the right word. Structures.
I have a question for staff. If we were to go forward, can we just ask that this exercise be run through the building for line of sight or whatnot? Like, do we need to depict where this stops and starts? Because it may not be reasonable looking at this drawing where if they could draw it to where you could see where the line of sight goes away, just to make sure we're not being overbearing.
If I understand the question, if the requirement was to have an 8-foot wall along a certain stretch and then taper down to a 6-foot wall to verify that staff determines line of sight, is that?
Mhm.
Yes, I think that would give staff enough direction from the planning commission to structure a good condition.
Looks about midway, front to back, midway.
Does it have to be block? Can it just be a screen that goes on the top? Or what's the requirements for that for the city?
So between commercial uses, there is no requirement for wall or screening. So I would say that would be at the discretion of the planning commission at this point.
Basically, they're proposing this block wall 6 foot out of the kindness of their heart. They don't have to. Okay.
Correct.
Dunbar, I don't think we've heard from you yet.
My questions were all answered. I think that if there's a possibility that changing the traffic flow does not require a redesign, it might be considered. But I thought Commissioner Willis had a good point that it might create in the back a straight run at the wall if somebody were to lose control of their accelerator or something along those lines. So I'm not sure that's the best possible solution. My questions have been answered. I'm feeling fairly confident.
Well, and the way this is, they'll just take out Peter's fence. They won't-
He thinks it's a beautiful project. Why not?
Maybe just for the record, there was a question brought up about the notices being made public. Could we just so it's out there?
Yeah, I think what's being referred to is the letters, either for or against or responses. And to the extent those weren't published as part of the agenda packet in advance of the meeting, 72 hours is required for the agenda itself. The agenda packet, it's often that there are additions, deletions, amendments to the packet itself within that 72 hours. And I think when staff, it came to their attention that wasn't, they wanted to augment the record. After it came to their attention, they published it on the website. They provided copies. There's copies available for the public. So, but the agenda packet itself has to be distinguished from the agenda itself. The agenda cannot be changed within 72 hours. The packet often is. In fact, if the commission changed one of the packet items already tonight when some of the resolutions were modified from the dais, that essentially is changing the packet documents. But the Brown Act is required to give 72 hours notice of the essential terms and items that are going to be considered. The packet items, like I said, can be supplemented or modified within those 72 hours.
Anything else up here?
I just want to draw attention to that side along that wall. It appears, and I just want to know if I'm correct, that there's a 3-foot setback before the curb starts. So there's a little bit of a cushion. Am I seeing that correctly? For vehicle traffic coming in through that entrance?
C3.
Yeah, C3.
You're referring to the southern boundary and the landscape setback?
Oh, it's on both the north and south of the property. So there's a bit a cushion prior to getting to the wall.
Correct, which widens along the stretch of the southern boundary.
Yes, it starts at 3 feet, 3-foot landscape buffer at the entrance. It gets wider as it goes back, and there's a 6-inch curb that borders the landscape buffer.
Masonry wall on the south side would decrease the amount of landscaping? No?
It's already
Already
considered. It's
Okay.
proposed in that site plan.
Could you pull up the, we need to vote on?
motion.
Keep going, keep going.
We're trying. I think the computer's tired. It's been a long night.
Come on, come on.
Oh, magnifying glass.
There we go.
More?
One more, yeah.
No, there's no more.
That's it.
Where is the condition about the parking?
The reduction.
The 10% reduction?
Yeah. Is that separate?
Oh, isn't it H?
It is not listed on there, but you'll just want to add it if that's what you're choosing to do.
Good catch, Chair.
Motion's on the table?
You're so good at it.
So, do we all stand on 8-foot fence?
I don't
Bring
think,
down to 6.
Okay.
I don't think it's necessary. I think they're putting a lot of money into a 6-foot block wall fence that's not required.
Motion that's going
Well, I'll make a motion that we approve the site and architecture review, subject to the conditions approval as proposed in Exhibit F or modified as needed, and find the project CEQA categorically exempt under Section 15332 infill development, and authorize staff to file a notice of exemption, and in response to the existing 6-foot wall, for the applicant to work with staff to determine the appropriate distance for a line of sight to that loading area in the back, which would be an 8-foot section of the wall. And that the landscaping, where are we at here?
You can just do that for 10% reduction.
Okay, and in accordance with EMC 17.43.040, the project qualifies for a 10% parking reduction. And apply that to landscaping.
I'll second that.
Motion and a second. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
It's in your way today.
Don't have to clear a room.
Great job. We got out of here.
That's a good place for it.
Oh, yeah. Get down here before 10.
We're not done yet. Now I'm really gonna.
No.
I'll put on my Sean.
And do what?
Did you adjourn? No.
No.
No, not yet.
I want your staff
Oh, yeah, we still got administrative.
Administrative matters.
on administrative matters.
You can't leave.
I know, I'm stretching my legs. Not as,
We can still violate the heck out of
Then he has to
something.
drive.
Okay, well, now the exciting part.
Is there more?
Is there more? So let's move on to administrative matters.
That's next.
There are no administrative matters on the agenda today.
you're out of order, sir.
Okay, now we will go on, Mr. Danziger, matters presented from the audience.
Okay, time's up.
I'm glad you guys finally made a decision. Some of us want to go home tonight. I want to address some of the, I'm not going to address the welding shop, but I'm going to address the agreement the city has with the city. First off, this plan area fee. that doesn't hold water for that company out there. There is a signed deferred utility agreement that calls out very clearly, after 5 years, nobody shows up out there, that company's responsible tying into the utilities. There's no fee mentioned in this agreement. So I don't know why staff is giving you that. That's, unless there's somewhere in the city code where that's available, which I've never seen it, it shouldn't even been brought up. That's number one. Number two, regarding site plan architectural review, brought up by the city attorney. Didn't say that about the last project. I mean, all you're supposed to look at is, you know, the height, color, the width, but these are public hearings. And that's what all of these people show up for, to give you your input. And, you know, take what he says with a grain of salt on that, but you're going to make some decisions like walls and things, you know, based on input. So more power to you, more power to the city on that. Getting back to that first site plan architecture review, I think anything that was put in the agenda package is fair game to be discussed at this hearing. And I would go to almost the last page where it says circulation and utility plans. That is part of that specific plan. That is part of a site plan architectural review, where those utilities are laid out. They aren't able to be moved without an addendum to that site plan. That has to go before the city council. There has to be proposed if you're going to make any changes to that. This company and staff unilaterally is going to allow them to change that. And I will read from the agenda. The circulation utility plans proposed for the project by the project proponent, which is the welding shop, do not match the outline in the specific plan. The proposed plans are not directly inconsistent with the plan, but treat the development as a standalone project. The site-specific plan is a whole development, not just one building. Should never let them go rogue. This is a building block. This is the foundation that you're going to make all these other decisions on. So what now? The next company comes in and says, hey, you know, we don't like where that utility is going. Why don't you, you know, put it this way or that way, and we'll just change it without amending the plan. So to finish with that, staff says, city staff is not of the opinion that the proposed plans require a specific plan amendment, but is an issue will need to be considered as future development occurs in the specific plan area. The hell does that mean? So it doesn't apply to this project, but it will to the next one? Come on. This, you were given a list of 3 things you could do. Prove it with conditions, deny it. There's actually the 4th one, which is table it and say, hey, there's inconsistencies here. We need to get these things ironed out before we make a decision. And this is a staff problem. You know, maybe you didn't catch it, what have you. But, you know, it's just, you got all of these things fighting against each other on this thing. And I'm not sure of this. There's no way that these guys get to put money into a pot someplace, and hopefully in 5 years there's enough money to pay to tie into utilities. They've got to tie in or they revoke their use permit. And I say we've never done that in this city. So it's just going to get dragged out, just like Lear, who still hasn't finished that project. It's been sitting there for 12 years. You know, the same thing's going to happen over there. They're going to come back in 5 years going, well, you know, we don't really want to do that. We'll pay the fines. $18,000 a year, that's nothing. You know, tying into $4 million with the utility, that's big. So just wanted to make that clear. 3 minutes didn't give us enough time there, Mr. Sarkozy, so thanks.
Thank you.
Can I respond to some of that?
You're not supposed to respond to my comments.
I'm responding to the commission. Site and architectural plan, I want to be very clear, I did not tell anybody they couldn't communicate about anything related to what was on the agenda. Okay? Public comment can be broadly construed as long as it relates to the agenda. Number 2, you can take what I've said with a grain of salt, but there are a lot, the site and architectural review is limited per our municipal code, which I read, to the building architecture and the site. There may be a lot of things the community has valid concerns about a particular project, but this planning commission has to follow the pyramid and the hierarchy that's set before it, all the way back to the general plan. And if you have a problem with this project, oftentimes you have a problem with the approvals and the policies and the plans that are behind that. And all I was trying to say was, when you're looking at this approval, that's what you have to focus on. I didn't mention it the last time because I didn't feel like I need to say it again because I had already educated you on the first time. There was comments, for example, related to last time about pedophilia. Well, even if that was an issue for project approval and site design, the only question you can ask yourself is there a way to design the project that would limit pedophilia or sexual predation? Because that's what the Planning Commission has vested in their purview. So I just wanted to get that clear.
And I'll just address a couple of the other comments that were made. And I, in particular, appreciate those who are watching the process. We all want to get it right. Staff is not perfect, commission's not perfect, no one's perfect, right? We're all trying to get it right. I will say on the plan area fee, those things, the plan area fee and the deferred utilities agreement, they do not have to be mutually exclusive. In fact, it's redundancy. The deferred utilities agreement is very clear. No time outside of 5 years does the project applicant not have to connect to city water and sewer. That does not mean if the city collects enough plan area fee monies and we can extend the infrastructure, that's when they have to comply. That's not what the agreement says. And so I agree with the resident on that remark there. We are also collecting a plan area fee for not only that improvement should it come to fruition, but for other improvements. We mentioned them, the widening of Brennan, the intersection control at Brennan and 120, entry monumentation for the specific plan area. There are other things that this plan area fee will pay for. The other item was in terms of the specific plan. This is how, it's not uncommon for development to occur this way. Specific plans are very big. They're called specific, but they are largely conceptual in nature. They are a narrowing in of what the general plan says, right, for a specific area. And we were very clear in the specific plan. It did deviate from the conceptual plans that were provided in the specific plan almost 20 years ago. Not to a point that would hinder or limit any future development. But it is something that staff, and this is what we said in the staff report, something that we will have to keep an eye on. That is not giving preference or deference to one developer. It is the first 20-acre development within a 150-plus acre specific plan area. So I want to be clear on those 2 points.
Read the deferred utilities agreement section in the agenda and what that clearly states.
Which
clearly states as the extension of infrastructure, a costly venture for the development of a portion of the specific plan area. The city is establishing a plan area fee, which collects money from all development for the necessary common infrastructure. The city would then complete the extension of infrastructure using the collected funds. So, may or may not know, the other property owners out there have no intention of selling. The city knows that. They presented that at council. This is the only piece of property that Ms. Schatz wanted to unload so she can go retire in Palm Desert. And so, we've got one. Plan area fee, that doesn't apply for this one developer. And, you'd have to have all these other individuals with other businesses come through related to any future development, looking at that going forward. So again, that shouldn't even been in here, not for this particular site project.
Mr. Fox, anything? Okay. Okay, thank you. Okay. Okay.
We do still have someone online watching. I'm not sure if they
Oh,
want to
okay.
comment or not.
Anybody online add anything? Okay. With that, we'll go to staff communications.
In light of the time, we will spare you with any staff communications. But also, we do not have anything at this time.
Anything projected for next month?
Yes.
4 projects next time.
Yeah.
No. I'll bring my sleeping bag.
Okay. All right. We'll go on to commissioner communications. Why don't we start online? Commissioner Dunbar?
No, I think I'm enjoying Bodega Bay, and what an interesting meeting this evening. I'm done.
And Dyke?
No, I learned a lot this time. Haven't had this robust of an agenda since I've been on here. Yeah, it was interesting, that's for sure.
Well, I appreciate the great job that staff did put together these 3 proposals and a great job from our chair to get this thing done before the next day. I thought this was going to be a long meeting. Good job.
Thank you, staff. Thank you, Diana, Jalen, Frank, cracking that whip and keeping us in line. Dominique, I'm sure you had something to do with it. You had to have something to do with it. Thank you.
Yeah, I think these 3 projects that were before us today were, 3 different businesses, and I think all very good for the community. Different parts of town, different industries. Really happy that the city was able to get those businesses, and we were able to get to the point we're at. And with that, at 10:06, we'll call it.
We have
My
maintenance
battery's low.
fix the clocks.